Select Board meeting for Monday, August 21st to order. We're going to go into executive session, and we'll be back no earlier than 6 p.m. Oh, good start. Now, would you give me a motion, Jeff?
I will. I make a motion that we move our meeting into executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, 21A6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if the chair declares that the open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the town. And pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss with respect to collective bargaining for all town unions, and the chair has determined that open session would have a detrimental effect on the town's bargaining position. Harwich Employees Association, HEA.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Michael?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. And Don is not here, so we're 4-0. He should be here by about 5:30.
Great.
So we're just gonna have staff vacate and
Okay.
we'll be all set?
Oh, we stay.
And shut the yeah, we decided we can stay. Good evening. Is that microphone? Oh, there we go. Okay. Welcome, and thanks for your patience while we just finished up a bit on our executive session. It's nice to be so popular. Welcome. We're back in open session for Monday, August 21st, 2023. We discussed the two items in the agenda under executive session, and one vote was taken, but it's legal related, so we won't be discussing that tonight. If you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We always start with public announcements, and I'm going to take advantage of the corner chair here, which I don't usually do, because I have a couple. One is Jeff and I are doing our next open office hours, September 21st. It'll be 2 to 4, and we'll get a location by next week. We were debating a couple possibilities. So that's A. And D is the next Select Board Working Group session is September 11th. They're held at 6 o'clock. They're held here. And I understand at a meeting that was discussing development in East Harwich, there were some statements that we were having illegal meetings. So I'd like to discuss that. They are not illegal meetings. Before we started working sessions, I talked to our council. Many towns do that. In fact, I found out just a few weeks ago, this very select board with different players did working sessions many years ago that were not televised. They are, like this meeting, open to the public. We do not take public comment. We also do not vote on anything. They're brainstorming sessions. I have forced the issues. Some of my brothers and sisters were a little reluctant, but we sit in a circle. So I sit over there to force the circle, because the idea is you look at one another, and it's a lot different when you're eye to eye versus perhaps trying to throw a sound bite out for TV or the paper. So that's the whole point of it. A few people have come to our sessions, not a lot, maybe a half a dozen, and at least a couple of them have spoken to me afterwards and said, it's nice to see the group of you discuss things. You're more relaxed. There's a lot of back and forth. I've always been told the sign of a really good meeting is when people laugh once in a while, and we do laugh once in a while. So that's the story on the working sessions. We will be continuing them, and I welcome any of you to join us anytime we're having one. Now I'll go back to, I believe, Robin, you have an announcement?
Hi. Can I just read a little brief thing here? So the Marceline Arboretum in Island Pond Cemetery received its Level 1 accreditation in February of 2021 with 50 species of trees or woody plants. We started the process in 2018, and unfortunately, we were hit with a tornado in July of 2019. At that tornado, we lost 275 trees in 5 minutes. And another 175 trees had to come down because they were damaged. With the help of AmeriCorps of Cape Cod, local citizens, the master gardeners, we now have over 110 species of plants that have been indexed on the grounds, which allow us to upgrade to a level 2 status in July. I'm working with the local water department. Dan is helping me upgrade all of my maps so that I can locate all of the trees. So if you went in there and you said, I am looking for a ginkgo tree, it'll show you where the ginkgo trees are. I want to see a Dawn redwood. So it would help you with that. The mission of the James G. Marceline Arboretum is to engage, educate, and enrich the lives of our constituents in order to enable them to become better stewards of our local history and the environment. The Cape Cod Technical High School horticultural students and the Master Gardeners of Cape Cod will be using our maps along with the tree tags to assist them in learning about the plantings in the gardens. Actually brought one of our tree tags with us. This one was illustrated by Bernadette Waystack, and it's a Dawn redwood, and it just gives you the scientific name, the common name, and a 2-sentence description. So a lot of the local schools are going out there doing tours with the kids and showing them about the plant things. So we do tours, example of the Lily Pond ecosystem. We do a veterans scavenger hunt, and we do a leaf collection with the elementary school students. So we've been awarded a new AmeriCorps member this year who'll be starting in September, and we look forward to adding more dates and more tours that will be happening. And all of our tours are always free. We welcome anyone who wants to come and visit. You can log on to our website, which is marcelinearboretum.org, or download our mobile app and to visit any of our prominent residents or any of the plantings. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you, Robin.
Jamie?
Jamie Goodwin. I was previously known as the Channel 18 director. I don't know what you're going to call me these days. Our station has changed from 18 to 8. I announced that at your previous meeting, and it did happen on August 17th. On the town's website, we're actually having a little survey to rename the station. We are not going to go with Channel 8 because down the line Comcast could change us again and again and again. So we're looking towards the future of what television is going to look like. We may not be on Comcast 8. There may be no cable someday. So we're looking for new names and some suggestions. There are some options. We've had 80 people respond so far, and we've had some good outside the box suggestions, or you can choose one of the ones that I have recommended. So we are now on 8, but you can still watch us on Apple TV, Roku TV, YouTube, and our live streaming page. So none of that has changed. So that's my announcement.
Great. Thank you very much, Jamie. Anyone else for public comment?
Good evening. I'm Carol Fuller, 3 Ashley's Way in Harwich. I am also the newly elected vice chair of the golf committee. So I saw the video of the last select board meeting and the agenda for this meeting in conjunction with the cancellation by the board of our golf committee meeting last week. So I would like to share some thoughts for your consideration.
Can I ask you to hold that, because we're going to be discussing that under the golf committee, and I expect that there's a lot of people that will want to have input at that point.
I would be happy to do that, Mary. I guess my assumption was this was our opportunity. We thought you were going into meeting and voting. You said possible votes. So I just thought we would get some points for your consideration before that. So whatever.
Absolutely. We will take that under that agenda item.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Carol. Appreciate your understanding. Now the chief can speak. Unless, maybe.
Madam Chairman, members of the board, I ordered Carolyn up here, and I'm going to tell you why in a minute. Dave Gilmet, Chief of Police. And I come before you tonight with something non-controversial.
Not if he's standing next to me.
Perhaps you and everybody in the room has heard of Coffee with a Cop. It's kind of like one of these new community policing things. I bring you Popsicles with the Police. And this is the brainchild of our very own Carolyn Carey. She sent the idea over to me, a few weeks back, Carolyn? And Kevin and her worked out the particulars of it while I was away on vacation last week, came back, and lo and behold, we have a date. It's Friday, this Friday, August 25th. So all are welcome. I think, obviously, the intent was to target a younger audience, but if you're 98 and like popsicles,
I don't know what you're
have at
talking
it.
about.
There'll be a handful of police. I spoke with Tommy Clark earlier today. He's still training his dog. He's due to be in New Bedford, but he's going to try and make it back for this event with Fritz, because I know everybody would love to see Fritz. But if you just want to stop by, have a popsicle and a conversation with I'll be there, the deputy will be there, and I'm sure a handful of our officers, and hopefully Tommy and Fritz. So it should be a great event, and I could not have done any of it without Carolyn, because it was her idea.
And he's very happy about it.
Do you have anything else, Carolyn?
No, I will just say thank you, and I do hope some of you stop by. Oh,
This Friday, August 25th, 1 p.m.
at the community
At
center.
the community center.
Great.
That's it.
Thank you. I don't think Carolyn's done, though.
Is she ever? We are having that one, and then a few of our other ones, the September 6th at 5 p.m. at the community center, Exploring Addictions. And that is a panel discussion. And we have on September 14th, Writing After the Age of 50. We have an author coming in. We'll be raffling off his set of 5 published works. We will be having the Sound Dunes Swing Ensemble free concert on September 12th from 6 to 8 p.m. And that's enough for today. I gotta go.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Moving the handcuffs. Bye now.
Anyone else for public comment? Yes.
Hi, I'm Ashley Symington. I am your new Director of Youth and Family Services. So before I give my announcement, I do just want to say thank you to the board for giving me the opportunity to come and be part of this amazing town. I'm very excited to be here and to build on and grow with the foundation that has been established by Sheila Howes over the last 20-some-odd years. So very excited. Thank you.
Yes, and we're thrilled to have you, Ashley.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So in the spirit of growing from that foundation, I have a group that's going to be starting up in September. It's called While You're Waiting, and it's for folks who are waiting. So we're going to have 2 sections of this group, one for middle school age students, one for high school age students who are either on a wait list to work with an outside counselor or therapist, or who are in the process of trying to locate one. Biggest need in mental health right now is access to care. There just aren't enough providers down here to really provide what's needed. So this will be an opportunity for those folks to come in, kind of have an opportunity to check in. We'll go over a coping skill a week and hopefully prevent folks from needing higher levels of care with this Fill the Gap kind of measure.
That sounds like a great idea. Thank you. Julie?
I just wanted to say thank you. I don't know why. All right, can you hear me? So thank you, because I think, Harwich has had a unique position, and it's great to have you. Sheila was wonderful, and we look forward to you fulfilling that role as well. But I think it's, again, a sign that we're willing to do things a little differently. And I just appreciate it, because that's all I hear is the lack of services for children especially. It's for adults as well, but the idea that you can at least try to, in the interim, help these kids, it's just a wonderful thing, and I love the creativity, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
Did you cover the handout that you have with the board?
No, I did not. Thank you. The Affordable Trust is bringing in a speaker, Bob Wilbur, to speak about the intersection of conservation and affordable housing. Larry Ballantyne invited Mike Locke to come to the last trust meeting just to explore ideas. And everyone talks about, open space and conservation, fighting with housing. And Larry's thought was, how he's the mediator, is there a way we can work together? Michael Locke had some great things to say, and he also suggested we bring this gentleman in. He's currently the Director of Conservation Services for the state, but he did work in a town, I think it was Stowe, and they, under his ambassadorship there, they did some pretty nice things working conservation with housing. So if anyone's interested, it's open to the public. You just need to RSVP to bobspencer529@gmail.com. And if anyone didn't catch that, we can put that out on the website. Maybe Jamie could have it scrolling. But it's an open session. It's at the community center, the 27th, 2 o'clock, probably 2 to 4. We've invited other towns, affordable trusts from other towns. We've invited the CDP, I think HAC. Larry's done a pretty good job inviting a lot of housing people. And thank you for the reminder, Joe. Okay. Now we're on to the consent agenda. Can I have a motion, Joe?
You may, Madam Chair. I move that we approve the Select Board meeting minutes for July 31st, 2023 and August 7th, 2023. I also move we approve the committee appointment of Linda Roderick on the Council, to the Council on Aging as recommended by the Select Board Interview Committee, term to expire 6/30/2025.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Michael?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Don?
I'm not sure why we're doing it separately, but
Oh, we can do that all as one?
That's not
See, I
executive
still need
session.
training. Julie?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, 5-0. Old business A. I brought that up earlier in the agenda, so not to keep you gentlemen here all night, so you're very welcome. You're welcome to sit or take the podium. You just have to identify yourselves.
I'm Bob Doan, Vice President of Pine Oaks Village Homes. And this is Jim Perrine, who is our developer.
I'm with Commonwealth Community Developers.
Yes. We have on Zoom Peter Freeman, who is our legal counsel. And we also have Rich Claytor from Horsley Witten here to answer any engineering questions should they come up. Doesn't seem to be clicking.
Peter is on, you just can't see him because you're presenting.
Yeah, but as far as I'm trying to click the slide.
Where do we aim it? Over there.
No, I know. Oh, there we go.
This is what happens when I micromanage when Matt's working. Try again, Bob.
Okay, nope,
Why don't you just say slide and I'll advance?
okay, slide. So we're here for a few topics. The first most important topic, I think, is the application process that we're proceeding with. I think there's some confusion between LIP and LITEC type, and Peter Freeman will explain that. We have a little update on our progress, and we are asking for review of plans, our current plans by town departments, and asking eventually for a support letter from the Select Board.
Excuse me 1 minute. If there are people online, can you mute yourself?
Okay. Well, we're actually ready for Peter Freeman
Okay,
because
all
he'll
right.
talk about the first topic. Peter?
Thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Okay, great, thank you. And first, I apologize that I'm not there in person. The only reason being that I was exposed to COVID, so I had the test, but I don't have the test results yet. So prudence dictates that I'm isolating, hopefully not for long. So thank you very much. In a nutshell, some of you may know me. I do a lot of affordable housing projects, including with nonprofits, Housing Assistance Corporation, and preservation of affordable housing. And to address what Bob just explained to you, the process starts, as you may know, but for everybody's edification, a 40B application starts with the need to have a project approval, a project eligibility letter signed off on by a state agency. And one of the main agencies that issues such project eligibility letters is Department of Housing and Community Development, which actually is no longer that name. It is now called Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. So there are multiple programs, as I said. Now, we very much want to be a friendly 40B and work cooperatively with the town. I think somehow there is perhaps in many towns and in many people's minds sort of a misunderstanding or a misnomer as to what a friendly 40B is, because quote unquote friendly 40B does not really have any legal meaning. It's not a legal term. It just really signifies that a town supports a project, and it doesn't have to be in a formal way. So one of the two subsidizing programs that I'm sure you're familiar with is the Local Initiative Program, LIP. And if it weren't for the fact that this project is going to be utilizing the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program, we would apply through the LIP process. However, DHCD, I'm still calling it DHCD, actually I should call it HLC, requires that if you're going to be funding with the tax credits, they insist that the project eligibility application, the very first stage of this process, be through that low-income housing tax credit program. So that is what we are doing, but in no way does it undercut or take away from the fact that we intend it to be friendly. We certainly would like your support, and that would be through a letter. Certainly not necessarily tonight, although we're happy to take support anytime. But my clients on their own have, worked diligently for a long time to assemble the land and to come up with a very good program of a project that is large, but will rapidly increase the number of units on the affordable housing, subsidized housing inventory for the town. And that's what we're here for tonight, to explain that this is the process that we basically are required to go through by the state agency that we hope will issue a project eligibility letter. So in no way do we intend that by not using LIP, we're somehow not wanting to be friendly, just the opposite. It's just that we really have to use the tax credit program as our vehicle to get the project eligibility letter, and then we would go on to the ZBA. So let's stop there and see if there are any other questions.
Any questions from the board? No, you can keep going.
Okay, so that's really what I wanted to say, and then Bob will follow up with some slides and make the point at the end, which I will also say first, and he can reiterate. With my clients and my projects, especially on the Cape, we really try to get going early and have some staff review, informal meetings with staff review, so that we can get feedback and input from all of the folks in the departments who will be reviewing the project. And that's also something that we would like to start with after tonight. So I just wanted to mention that, and Bob will also talk about that a little bit. So Bob, I'll let you turn to your part of the presentation with your slides.
Actually, I'd like to ask you a question. Can you explain the LIHTC steps?
The Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program is a program which, again, gives an applicant eligibility to apply for a Chapter 40B comprehensive permit. So it's really no different than any other program. There is a site application, or project eligibility application that is filled out. And the comment period that towns have, once we file, we give a copy of that LIHTC, so-called Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program application. We give a copy to the town. The town has 30 days in the municipal comment period to send in comments to Housing and Livable Communities. And then after that, the agency, we certainly hope, will issue the project eligibility letter. And then we would apply to the Zoning Board of Appeals in Harwich for the comprehensive permit.
Thank you. So then, moving on, I think we can, if you slide. Okay. So just a little recap of our project. It is going to be done in essentially 4 phases. The first 3 phases are going to be mixed income apartments, ranging from 30% AMI or below, up through possibly up as much as 120% AMI, definitely to 100% AMI. The 3 phases consist of 88 units for each. 4 buildings, 2 sets of townhouses, and 2 sets of lodge buildings, which are inside corridor-type buildings.
Bob, could you just explain quickly what AMI means? There's a lot of people out here who have no idea.
Average medium income, and I'll let Jim really get into that if you have any questions.
Yeah, it basically is HUD's determination of what the area median income is, what the median income is, and it's done by, basically, the area would be Barnstable County.
Could we ask you to mute again while you're not speaking, because it does interfere here with the ability to hear? Thank you.
Sorry.
Is that?
Yep, it was for the people out there who
Okay.
don't necessarily understand initials.
Right. So the overall plan, when we're designing the system, we're very environmentally sensitive. It will have nitrogen-removing wastewater systems. We want to preserve as much of the natural setting as possible, which is trees, pine trees, oak trees, and others. We are going for very high efficiency, planning to do full passive house. We'll have solar panels, and we have decided not to have any hydrocarbons come in, no gas, no oil. We're definitely going to have social engagement. We have a community building planned that'll have different activities, meetings. We'll have open picnic area, and plus we'll have a community service director team eventually to help out residents, either coordinate parties, things, or maybe be a referral to other services that tenants may need. And of course, like we do now, we're going to have on-site management and maintenance. Next slide. So our progress so far, we have completed our building placement and road design. We have the building floor plan and elevations of the buildings, and those will come in next slides. So we're ready to actually submit that part to HLC. We've done a wetlands study, an independent wetland study, and that is complete, and we're wanting to share that with conservation. We have started the traffic study. The data has been collected during the month of July, noting that that's the peak time of probably traffic. And that's primarily for our assumption that the main entrance will be on Queen Anne Road. That report is due within a month. We have Horsley Witten on site doing all our engineering systems, HVAC, water, waste, electrical, typical. We do our soil testing this week for permeability and stormwater drainage and for the sand of support buildings and that type thing. The landscape design is also being done by Horsley Whitley, so it's totally integrated with our engineering and our road layouts. And one interesting thing is that we've had really good feedback with Cape Cod Regional Transit Authority because it's kind of out there. It's not really near any current bus stops, but they are very much wanting to put in a flex route. And we actually pointed out not only us, but the Marshline property, and they said that's even better. So they're planning to do a route possibly starting at Patriot Square, Great Western, then up through Queen Anne, hitting nursing home, coming by us, and then going up and going into Marshline's property, and then heading on to Brewster. And we've written, we're submitting a formal letter, and they said our timing is perfect, because we're looking at 2025 to 2026, and that's how long it takes for them to develop new routes and get the funding. So next slide.
I might add, I'm
Yeah.
sure they'll be talking with the town, certainly. It's not like this is going to happen independently, but they'll be very much communicating with the town.
Yeah. In fact, even kind of stepping back with our traffic study, we really want to work with the town because with your Mars line, you're gonna have to, there's some decisions gonna be made there for access, and that'll also have an impact on Queen Anne Road undoubtedly, as well as 124. So maybe with our data combined with the data that comes out of that study, they combine, and we come up with one solution, if a solution's needed. So this is just the outline of the plan. I think it was handed out. Do you want to see, do you have the bigger one? Yeah, great. Yeah. If we,
Yeah, the easel over there if you want.
yeah.
We have copies in our packet,
Oh, you
too.
do?
So
Okay.
maybe hold that up so some people in the audience
Yeah.
can see it.
It's still a little difficult to see, but this is coming in from Queen Anne Road on the top, near the left. The road comes in and comes around, and there's some low spots there that we're trying to avoid, as well as some wetlands that we found that aren't on any maps.
I'm gonna go back to the screen.
Okay,
maybe,
yeah.
If that's okay, to sort of point out. Queen Anne is up here,
Right,
and then Main Street down at the bottom.
right.
Okay, so the entrance that Bob was talking about is right here.
Yeah, and it continues on and breaks down, but we've split this into 4 phases. The first phase is in blue, which you can't see too well, but it includes 88 units, as well as the waste treatment plant way at the end, and the community center. Then phase 2 and 3 are more the, another 88 unit apartments, another 88 apartments. Now, one thing we didn't mention before, although we mentioned that we were looking for home ownership opportunities, now that we've really surveyed the land, we've identified in phase 4 where these could be home ownership opportunities, not apartments, that both at the entrance and then kind of round on the south side of the property. As you probably are aware, there's no real funding for that, but you know, there may be in the future, and there are other ways that we can look at funding that, and they would be, again, below market rate and maintain below market rate on those opportunities. Do you have any specific questions on the site
Anyone?
plan, or?
Michael?
Yeah, who did the traffic study?
Jim? Commonwealth?
Huh? No, who's doing the traffic study?
I think we're gonna have to get back to you.
Jeff Dirks, but who's he with?
Sorry.
And then,
We're gonna have to get that to you. We'll
then
have
to
get that
follow up
answer.
on that, how did they collect the data?
I believe it was through visual, working with people on corners and intersection, I understand.
Yeah, I mean, the plan, I think, was to put some of those, you know, just put some of those black, hoses, whatever, across the road to get the traffic counts, of how many, you know, how many are
But-
going, and a number of spaces.
But it was also.
Oh, I'm sorry. You need to
but-
be at a microphone if you're speaking because the people on
Vanessa and
TV
Associates
can't hear us.
is the traffic study. Yeah, Vanessa and Associates.
Yeah.
And they also, I know they were doing observations at all the intersections, both on Main Street and all through Queen Anne Road, and doing hand counts and observing backups at the light and things like that. So they did, I know that was a lot of what they were looking at, including, I think, the disposal area they're looking at, traffic coming in and out of there.
Great. Michael?
And when can we expect more information? I
it
don't
should-
recall driving over any rubber things. I drive that road 3 or 4 times a day.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I may have been mistaken in that they were also doing hand counts, and maybe they decided that was sufficient, but,
So when's it likely that this board will see it?
Within 4 weeks, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then if you could just explain the AMI one more time. Now, based on your funding and what you're going to the state for funding, what percentage of this is going to be affordable, and what percentage of this is gonna be market rate?
Well, it's not market rate, first of all. None of it will be market rate. It'll all be below market rate. But there'll be approximately 2/3 which fall into the definition of affordable. And then 1/3 in, there's different words, sustainable. A lot of people like to call it workforce, but there's no definition of workforce. But to be more precise, it'll be the mass housing definition of workforce of 60% AMI to 100% AMI. That is their range. We haven't decided on the 100 to 120% yet, but that is our goal, because even at 100% AMI, people just can't find apartments that are, you know, living. That's the problem.
2/3 affordable is what you said.
Yes.
Correct.
And I would say it's important to understand sort of there'll be different levels of what you call affordability, but the range typically is up to 60% of the median of AMI, and which for a family of four, 60% would be about $69,000 of income for a family of four. So it's not, you know, it's, and we do have some at the lower levels, but it's really people who are, you know, who are out there working, and people who may.
Somebody needs to mute themselves, and not the gentleman speaking.
Anyway, so it's, I think you wind up having a lot of people who are working and who are really important for the economy of the area. And then the so-called workforce goes from that level up, up to 100, let's say 100 or even 120% of the median, which for family of four, 100% is 115,000 of income, and 120 is 138,000. So it's the idea is to have a mixed income community so that the people who are living there may not be aware of, what income group somebody is in. It's more like we're mixed, and so we can hopefully meet the needs of the community that are in various levels of, of income, as well, so.
Michael?
Who controls the application process for the affordable? And how can the community have confidence that it's going to be people in this community, working in this community, and this is for this community?
Oh, you mean in terms of the rental applications? And that's something that the management company, Hall Keen, that does the other Pine Oaks Village properties in town, and that I think does I think they do a great job. They've got a great reputation statewide, but a very strong presence here on the Cape. They will handle the lottery, and they will handle the rentals. And so the process involves, first of all, people will be, the lottery will be publicized. It'll be publicized in, online publications, newspapers, through town hall, through churches, I mean, kind of you name it. And we will have a preference for local residents. And the preference will be for, at least for the initial lottery, up to 70% of the units will be covered by a local preference. We have to get the state approval for the local preference, and the state, one of the things they look at is what sort of support, is the town supporting it, and that sort of, is this town providing resources, things like that. And I just completed an affordable development in Yarmouth, the Yarmouth Gardens, and we were able to successfully get that 70% local preference. The preference is typically designed to cover people who live or work or have children in the schools in Harwich. So that's
Julie?
How do you get to the 120%? What does it take for the AMI, for you to be able to get through mass housing to get to the 120%?
It's, I think it's more, we'll be applying for funding sources from several places, and we need to make sure that we can get some funding, for example, for the 120%. The tax credits, for example, those are oriented towards the up to 60% number. The tax credits enable us to bring private equity to invest in the project. It's very important. We will, for example, we'll have a mortgage, and that mortgage, certainly some of that will cover the cost of the upper incomes levels. There are some programs that, through the state, that go higher than 60%. They may go to 80 or 100% or even 120. And then there's mass housing, where they have a particular mortgage program. It's a soft second mortgage that's oriented towards the up to 100, from the above 60 up to 100%. So it's a fairly complicated set of financing programs, and I hope I'm not putting everyone to sleep. And we basically have to make sure that we can come up with the money we need to build it. And so I'm, based on where the programs are and based on what our estimates of expenses to build it and so on, we're confident we'll be able to get, the financing that we need to get some, to build, to cover the range of incomes. But as Bob said earlier, for the financing is harder above that 60% level.
Jeff, did you have a question?
I do, Madam Chair. Thank you, and thanks for being here tonight. Everyone who's involved in this, I certainly appreciate it. And I am sensitive and understand the upfront costs of this. Before anybody ever moves in, the upfront costs of a project like this is enormous, and I think that needs to be recognized. My interest is in the school system, and that kind of brings about the question of number of bedrooms. Have we looked at projections to how many kids in the first phase, second phase, third phase might be entering into our school system? Is there a plan, or maybe you already have done it, spoken to our, Scott Carpenter to get his take on it? I'm sure you've thought of all this, but I think it's something I wanted to ask.
We have requested a meeting with
Excellent.
Scott Carpenter.
Excellent.
And a couple thoughts. With the local preference, there are people that are already enrolled in school probably. So there won't be any initial shock to the school system at the beginning. Now, over time, it's possible that other people, families will move in over time that aren't necessarily already in Harwich, but they may be. At that point, we're also looking at the somewhat downward trend of school students. I think 4.5% it's gone down the last couple years, 5 years. So we're hoping any increase we bring will actually fill in and boost up that, so we can stay at more or less a constant level, so we don't have to cut programs, because that's the first thing. When you lose your student population, you have to start cutting a lot of extra programs, and that just generally brings down the quality of the school. But we'll have more answers with that once we really get into the details with Scott Carpenter.
I knew you thought of it. I just wanted to bring it up. You guys have thought of everything, and I appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is not so much of a question as an observation. It would not, as far as I know, because of the projects in proximity over the last few years, a project that goes from 30 up to 120% is not the first time this has ever been done anywhere, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So I believe Yarmouth has done it. I believe Orleans is in the process of doing it. It all is about the financing components, but it's a puzzle. There's nothing precluding them from putting the puzzle together.
Okay. Michael?
So back to the local preference. First on the state lottery. This is open to the whole state.
Correct.
Correct.
Right.
And then you're saying local preference in your last project, you managed to get 70%?
Yeah.
And is that Pine Oaks 1, 2, and 3, or your
No,
Yarmouth?
this is what a project I did separately in Yarmouth.
Bob? Can I just make a comment for a second?
Sure.
Relative just to that topic, Greg Winston, Chairman of the Board, President. Relative to that particular topic, I think it's important to note, Pine Oaks Villages 1, 2, and 3. We just did a survey study of our residents in the properties and their relationship to the community. 91% of the residents within the villages have attachments to the community, either their relations to people living in the community, or their children live in the community, their sons and daughters. They're all about 91% of our residents in the 3 villages, that's 163 units, are related to the community. So, and it's our goal, of course, naturally, that this will be just exactly the same way. I think it's important to also point out that getting from that 80 to 120% median income is incredibly difficult. Financing affordable housing is much easier than financing housing for the workforce, which is Bob was just referring to. So we're actually thinking about foundations and ways that we can actually fund ourselves and raise the funds so that we can build more workforce housing. But anyway, I just want to get that in. Thanks.
Thank you.
Greg.
Michael?
You mentioned the wastewater treatment facility. I'm sure you don't have the answers tonight, but I'd like to understand more about what that is and what it's going to do.
And
Given
I think
our
our engineer, Rich. Rich?
Good evening, members of the Select Board. My name's Rich Clater. I'm the principal engineer at
Can you
Horsley
pull
Witten
the
Group.
mic a little closer?
Yeah.
Thank
How's
you.
that? So I'm the principal engineer at Horsley Witten Group. I'm not the wastewater expert, but we have looked into the wastewater. We're doing a denitrification system. The total flow is going to approach 60,000 gallons per day at full build out. So it's a fairly large system. And we've just started on the process. It'll be a denitrification system. We've used the Clean-2 system for similar projects, a little smaller in scale, so we're not entirely sure what will be the best system. The Amsterdam system these are proprietary systems that have good track record, have been used for a while, and have a good operating success. So the short answer is we have a scope with the client to review what are the best systems in terms of not just the capital cost, not just the performance, but the long-term operation and maintenance. Probably as important as anything is what does it cost to maintain them, and what does it cost to keep that performance. It will be denitrification system. We're also going to be meeting with the town to try and understand how that integrates with your future wastewater plans, so that this is a system that either can be compatible or possibly help support the town's wastewater planning in the future. So we're really at the early stages on that. I think Bob mentioned we're getting ready to do the testing in a week or so. So we're going to start on the testing. Once we know what the soils are like, we'll have a better understanding of exactly what kind of system we have to put in there. So not a lot of answers for you tonight, but it is programmed. The project needs a groundwater discharge permit from Massachusetts DEP. So we're going to go through the full groundwater discharge permit process, which requires an engineering report, a lot of detail on the hydrogeologic study, how the ground accepts the wastewater. All of that is in the process.
Just one follow-up. Given DEP's recent 24th hour change, is the system that's being proposed only going to be proposed for nitrogen, or will it look at things that are coming down the road, chemicals of emerging concern, anything else that we'd be putting into the ground with 266 plus units in one small spot?
So they're regulated constituents, and they're currently unregulated constituents. PFAS, for example, is somewhat regulated, but there are other components that aren't. So what we'll be looking at is the the required permit, biological oxygen demand, total organic carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, metals, things like that, but also the emerging contaminants. Some of these systems do a better job than others, and some of them we don't know a whole lot about yet. I think the short answer is in our feasibility study, we will evaluate, again, what is known based on what is in wastewater, and then how well these systems can treat that. And then if we don't know something, we will ask the questions, and then that's something that we'll certainly be presenting to you further, and Zoning Board of Appeals when we start in on that process. We want to have those answers when the questions come up.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Julie?
Just a question, sorry, not for wastewater, but design. You said that it wasn't going to have your typical, gas, propane or anything. So you're doing heat pumps? How are you
Yes.
gonna?
Yeah, that actually is engineering, but yes, heat pumps throughout, including the hot water, with that technology is now available, which it hadn't been. It is now available, so you can be hydrocarbon-free at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and then you,
Sorry.
I was just gonna add, just combining that with a lot of insulation and sealing the building and really, really good and expensive windows and so on, so that reduces the heating load. And then we have the heat pumps, which have cold climate heat pumps, which are very highly efficient compared to what they were, say, 20 years ago. And then with some solar panels to help us with the electricity.
Joe, did you have any questions?
I don't have questions. I can certainly respond to questions from the board or make any other comments, but I'm good for now.
The only question I have for you, and others might have more, what is the difference to the town in this being a LIHTC as opposed to a LIP?
Excellent question. May I refer to my notes?
You may refer to your notes. You may dial a friend if you like.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I may take advantage. I think what I should do, though, is start out and remind first myself and everybody the words that Ronald Reagan offered many years ago when he said the most chilling statement ever made was, "Hello, I'm from the government." So, hello, I'm from the government.
Here to help you.
So, yeah, we're here to help. Whatever it is, it's a Chapter 40B comprehensive permit, and Attorney Freeman spoke to it a little bit earlier. We, the town, are aware of the requirements that will come back to the town towards the end of the process, so to speak, with the zoning board. And so we know the Zoning Board of Appeals is gonna have to go through their process once the application gets to them. We, the town, would be seeking the guidance from Mass Housing Partnership, as they offer when a town is the other party on a 40B application. My concern from what I've heard tonight is what I've been hearing previously, and that's the comment of informal conversations with staff. We heard that the developer is going to be seeking a project eligibility letter. And we know, as was stated tonight, that that project eligibility process requires the municipality to have a 30-day comment period. And to that, if I could rely upon the documentation from the Mass Housing Partnership, which it guides with that, it says, after receiving a project eligibility application, so that in this case would be to what we refer to DHCD still, the subsidizing agency, DHCD, notifies the chief elected official, that is the select board, and they schedule a site visit. The notification letter starts the clock for a 30-day comment period for the town. At this point, the select board should post the notice and PE application on the town's website and seek comments from municipal boards and departments. Making the documents available on the town website will ensure that interested residents can have access to the information so that they can comment if they wish. Meaning, we, the town, are going to have what I consider to be a more formal process as a result of the developer seeking the project eligibility letter. So it would be helpful for me to advise our team of what is meant by informal versus what would be a more formal process. Because I wouldn't want anyone to think that the town is not going to go through the process as we've done before, which is a standard operating procedure. As much as I, as a resident of this town, honor and respect the work that Pine Oaks does and is looking to do, I'm a government agent and I represent the town, and we are to look at this dispassionately. So I think there needs to be some conversation, doesn't have to be tonight, but what is meant by informal conversations versus what's going to be and what should be, as we did with a previous prospective 40B a year ago, the process.
Certainly, I believe I speak for the five of us that we want to.
Madam Chair, may I respond just briefly?
That's Peter Freeman.
Yes, Mr. Freeman?
Thank you, and I'll try to be brief, and I appreciate those comments. And perhaps that's also been a subject of misunderstanding. When I said informal tonight, in no way was I meaning that somehow that would be in lieu of or in any way mitigate against or diminish the opportunity for the town through that 30-day comment period that your manager just mentioned. That is absolutely the process. It was properly described, and I am certainly aware of that. I think I mentioned it. So by informal, I simply mean that we're not making any actual applications with a formal filing to any particular department or board. That will come when we apply to the zoning board for a comprehensive permit. But I can tell you sincerely and factually that in just about every other Chapter 40B affordable housing application that I've been involved in certainly on the Cape, two in Brewster recently with Housing Assistance Corporation, and Mashpee also with Housing Assistance Corporation in the town of Bourne, and also Dennis. We always seek to talk to your department folks. Now, a lot of towns have site plan review as a very formal part of the zoning code, whether it's for a residential development or a business commercial development. And that is a formal process where there's an application. So when I say informal, just using that as an example, we would not be making a formal application at this time if there's a site plan review, but we would ask to meet with the different staff members, department members, and all of that to basically go over our preliminary plans, excuse me, and to get the feedback so that if there's something that we missed in terms of technical requirements or how the local bylaws and regulations work and suggestions, I can tell you that most of the time there's some very helpful suggestions that come out of those meetings on the various topics, be it traffic, be it site design, things like that. And then we absorb those comments and try to improve our projects right from the get-go. So that's why we think it's beneficial to do it early on. And I'll just end by stating again where I started, that in no way means that we don't expect that you will go through whatever detailed process you want to gather comments and reply back to the subsidizing agency. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Joe, I'd like you to comment on that. Are you aware of informal conversations with staff?
No, we haven't initiated those yet, and that's because we knew this was going to happen, and I appreciate the comments from the attorney. That gives me great comfort as to what the next steps could be. And I think most importantly, because I know board members have gone through potential 40Bs in the past, and there hasn't been that conversation. So for me, this was extremely helpful.
Great. Don, I think you have.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to reiterate, I mean, I've been involved in zoning and planning for about 25 years in this town. I just wouldn't expect that they would be placed at a higher burden than any commercial developer would, because these kinds of conversations, informally with a town planner, if we had one, is a normal occurrence. They bounce ideas off, and if something is just egregiously wrong, that's the opportunity to fix it before you go into the full process. I know almost every commercial person does make such an approach to the pertinent planning office.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, back to you, gentlemen.
Okay, so next slide. Just a quick. So, again, just show the elevation. This is basically the same as we presented last time. This is the townhouse configuration. And then, next slide. There we go. This is our large building. This has changed quite a bit since we last showed you. And this still needs more work on it to finalize what we want the outside of the building to look at. Next slide. And, while we're asking, again, this has really just been covered, this, town, access to the town departments for these informal discussions. We're ready for, quite a few of these with our progress so far. And of course, the final ask is a letter of support for EOLHC for the application of our eligibility letter from the selectmen, as well as the Affordable Housing Trust. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Joe, are we ready to do that? Is that appropriate at this point to do that letter? Or does the request have to be into that state agency that changed their name?
I believe Selectman Howell was gonna,
Oh, I can't see you, Selectman Howard.
No, I was just chuckling over the name changes because the game remains the same.
Right.
They can
so
call it whatever they
respectfully,
want.
what I would recommend is the next step would be we would assemble all relevant parties to meet with the folks. You may recall there was a prospective 40B about a year ago, and we met at the Emergency Operations Center, because that's where we could meet as a group and go through it. We would not have done any of that prior to this conversation this evening. Now, as far as the letter itself, that's a board decision, but respectfully, I think if you allow the team to do their work, there's no reason why we couldn't come back in early fall for you to consider that.
Okay, so you would suggest we wait till after that meeting with all of the
I would
department heads?
recommend that the next step be that comprehensive meeting with staff. You saw in the previous slide, some of the parties that would be there, but generally, we have any and all department heads available.
Great. Anybody feel differently? Michael?
No, thank you for that, Joe. I think it's very premature to ask for a letter of support, and I think that there's a lot of information the public needs. 266 units anywhere is a lot of units. We're not talking about Route 28 in Yarmouth. We're talking about Queen Anne Road in Harwich, which holds a transfer station. You also mentioned the Marceline property. I can't wrap my head around 266 units in one spot and 100 plus in another spot at that combining intersection with your inlet and outlet on Queen Anne Road, having traveled that every day for 4 years. So that, along with the school numbers, your attorney mentioned payment in lieu of, which is a great term. I believe that's what you use for Pine Oaks 1, 2, and 3, as you don't pay 100% taxes. I think you pay about 50% taxes. So now we're talking about 266 units with no real projection of students into the school. And as much as I appreciate you saying that you're backfilling a declining population, one thing that has never declined is our budget, especially the school budget. That continues to climb at a fairly alarming rate to the point where it's almost going to pass the town budget. So that's those are two very tall asks. And that's why I asked about the traffic study, because as great as this feels to everybody to say we're going to put in 266 units, if you propose this in Harwichport, there's plenty of people in this room tonight that would say, no way. East Harwich, same thing. There was talk about a 40B out there, and things erupted. So there's a lot more information that I need before I can support it. Pine Oaks has done great things for this town. 1, 2, and 3 are great, and have done great things. So your reputation is the reason why I'm still kind of on board. But 266 units is a lot of units to ask the town for, and to pay a lot more. You pay a lot less taxes than the average homeowner.
Anyone else? I'll add the, what's that, point and counterpoint? I think 266 or 288 is only the beginning of what we need. So I'm on the opposite side of the fence here. We do want to go through the process, but I am personally very interested in seeing this come to fruition, along with Marceline with 100. I do not think 400 apartments is going to change the character of Harwichport. Just don't believe it. Jeff?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and again, thanks for being here, and a great presentation. I'll speak for myself. I think that as it sits right now, that letter is a little premature, but I don't want you to get the feeling that I feel that I don't support the efforts and the work and the project that you're putting in front of the town of Harwich. So I don't want to get it confused. I am in support of seeing what you bring to the town of Harwich to then finally support. So thank you.
Julie, anything?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree that, you know, we're sorely in need of housing. I think we need to let you vet through the process with our staff. I don't get the feeling that you're looking for us to issue a letter immediately, that you're obviously understand we've got a lot of due diligence to do as well as you do yours. But I am interested in seeing what comes forward and the feedback from staff, because housing is crucial and we need it, so.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think everybody knows how I feel about the housing situation in general. The only thing I can say is that it's easy to say no, 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 no everywhere you go, but the problem is we've been discussing trying to build certain things with greater density in certain places so we can protect other areas that shouldn't be built on. If anyone, and I know this came up with the trust a couple of years ago, if anyone thought that just because there was a property next to them that had a bunch of trees, that meant that it was a conservation area, they were mistaken. I'm aware of the hoops you had to jump through in order to aggregate the property because there were a lot of title problems. But in doing a 40B, you pretty much have a clean sheet of paper to create a community, which is what you folks do. You don't just slap some buildings into place and call it a day. So the idea of having this as an integrated community of different strata of incomes is commendable to me. I mean, and the fact that it doesn't get sprawling, and I know you've made efforts, you didn't say it tonight, to shield this based on the contours of the land. So in pretty much every measure, if we don't do this, we're still being held up by the state. If we don't get to the 10% goal, people will tell you what they're going to build, and it's going to be the carrot and the stick with the horse. The horse is too dumb to realize he's not going to catch up, because every building that gets built that's 75-25 for a market rate winds up creating regular housing that actually doesn't really improve your affordable housing percentage at all, like maybe 0.1% or something. This is really about finding an appropriate space to be able to build a community, and I think it's great that you guys have taken this on, and it's not like you just figured this out 2 weeks ago. I know you've been spending like a long time trying to figure out how to piece together the properties and come up with a project that would look appropriate and that would be consistent. I get all the problems with taxes and other stuff, but at some point or another, we're going to have hostile 40Bs coming in various places, and we're not going to be able to have that discussion.
Greg, and then we're going to have to move on, but go
Okay.
ahead.
I just want to just make one.
Would you just identify yourself, please?
One quick point. First, please understand that we're showing you in the map that you've seen and so forth and so on, four phases of development. I will never live long enough to see the third, maybe not even the second. We're talking about 88 units. That's all we're talking about to begin with. But in the process, this is something that we're planning for well into the future for our town, our community, our children, our families who raise their children here, and then their children can't afford to make a living here, and they certainly can't afford to live here. So this is an opportunity for the town to embrace something that is not only an incredible benefit for the community, but it's taking care of a serious need. My goal and our goal as a board has always been to take care of the community. So the idea that we would be drawing people from other communities to come and live in this neighborhood is far from my mind. I was born in this town in 1958, 51, and I'll die in this town, God knows when, tomorrow maybe, I don't know. Bottom line is that I've worked, as a board, we've worked very, very, very hard, particularly with our architectural style and with the complex, the design has taken years to come up with this. And actually, I looked at old turn-of-the-century hotels to come up with some of the ideas so that these buildings would really look like they belong here. We're building a village within a town. Pine Oaks Village, and I don't even know if Bob brought up, but actually we're even talking about our own daycare center and early intervention center, which is part of these initial plans for phase 1. So it's really 88 units that we're talking about in my lifetime, maybe. But this whole thing had to be laid out completely. We were fortunate enough over all of these years to be able to acquire and to be able to satisfy the titles to so many deeds for such amount of real estate that is really secluded. We have very few abutters that'll ever even see the buildings. So I just want everybody to have a very open mind about the fact that what we're doing right now is 88 units. What this town's going to need 10 years from now is a lot more than 88 units. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you. We appreciate your efforts, what you've done for the town in the past, and look forward to watching the next steps on this project.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Very well.
Thank you very much.
Okay, can I have a motion on new business A? Back up, Jeff.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to affirm the appointment of Don Yanuzzi as Natural Resource Director.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yep. Sorry, but I'm going to repeat what I've said before. There's still a carousel going around and around of people leaving, people coming, and I did take the trouble to go through all of the...
Can you wait 1 second, Don? Can I ask people that are talking to please go out of the room? And maybe whoever's closest to the door, would you mind closing it, just so we can hear, Don?
There are those who would appreciate them running interference.
Go ahead, Don.
I was saying that I availed myself of the opportunity, went to see all the applications, and clearly he's the best candidate. And I applaud him for putting in for this. But again, I will be abstaining until we have a fuller discussion about why so many people are leaving, even after they've been recently appointed.
Okay, and last time I bit my tongue and said nothing and talked to you later, but I have to ask you publicly, what do you possibly think that will help? This is someone in the town who's being promoted. This should be something we all rejoice at, much like the most recent one that you declined. The discussion about why people are leaving, we have had. We know we've had retirements, we've had people that have left for reasons that won't be discussed in public. I don't know what you're hoping to accomplish. Michael?
I was just hoping the town administrator could give us an overview of this employee, where he started and why he wanted to take this job.
Thank you.
I know, but I'm not sure the public knows.
Say again?
I know, I'm just not sure the
Thank you.
public knows.
No, I do appreciate the opportunity to defend my decision, but more importantly, seek your affirmation. So Mr. Yanuzzi came to us by way of rural Pennsylvania, typically the usual route, of course not. He informed me that he was drawn here on the advice and recommendation of family about 2 years ago. He came into our employ in 2022 at the level of dockhand and was immediately stationed with both Harbor Master Rendon and the Natural Resources Director, Heinz Prof, at the time. Both of those individuals spoke highly of Mr. Yanuzzi, so I opted to name him a finalist, put him through my rigors, and what we have, in my opinion, is a dedicated self-starter who has demonstrated everywhere he's been employment-wise that he rises to the occasion. And although I would have loved to have seen more by way of education, he offered something unique to the town, and that was for us to make his appointment contingent upon him remaining in college, which I now understand is remote and online, not like the way we had to do it back in the day. So he's able to go to school full-time while he works full-time and to achieve the bachelor's degree in natural resources. He was by far and away the best candidate of all, but truly for me, the deciding factor was the strong recommendations of our existing harbor master, our former natural resources director, and staff that met him. And I have every expectation he'll do a phenomenal job.
Great, Julie?
Yeah, I just want to follow up on your point, Mary, is that, this is exactly what we want to see. We want to see somebody who has served our town well, who retired, and we were sorry to lose him, but happy for him to be able to retire and have his underling come right up. And so I think it's amazing that we have this young person staying in employment with the town and moving up and advancing. Commitment to further education, all of those things have nothing to do with other issues of people leaving. And this is exactly what we were hoping to do in various departments throughout the town. So I think it's congrats to him.
Anyone else? I'll take a vote. Michael?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
You could do it all at once.
Don?
Abstain.
Abstain. Julie?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so 4-0, one abstention.
Madam Chair, item B, can
Yes.
we put to the end of the agenda when we discuss committees?
We can do that. You just have to.
Not looking for an action, I'll remember, I'm not looking for an action, and there is 6 people on that committee, so to change it, we will have to look at the attendance. But I'll explain
When we get to
later in the
committees.
agenda.
And you'll remember that in case I forget.
Sure will.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I apologize, but I do want to say thank you. I appreciate the support, the affirmation, and I think Mr. Yunus is going to do great things for our town.
Great.
Or I should say, continue to do great things. So thank you for that.
Very welcome. Next, I put a fall schedule in the packet. I noted that last year we stuck with the, shall we call it, summer schedule through November. So I had Danielle put together dates proposing that we stay every other week. That affords us a week to put in a working session. And as always, if something came up, we can always pop a meeting back in. But I throw that out for comment. Michael?
Mary, I'm good through September. I'd like to bring this back when we don't have 2 other issues that should take a fair amount of time.
Okay,
And I'm good through September on the proposed schedule.
okay.
I'm a little leery about October and November, given the amount of things that we're working on, the committee reviews, and the length of time it's taking for things to come back to us. And I think we're gonna build ourselves into a corner and hit budget season again behind, and our meetings will go till 10 or 11. And I'd rather meet every week than stay here until 10 or 11 every week.
Agreed. Don?
I agree.
Okay.
Sorry.
Do we need a
and I
motion on
agree.
that? No? Okay. So is that agreeable? And I'm sure Jeff will be fine. So we'll go through September, the end of September, then we'll tentatively schedule every week, and we can decide closer.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that I'm stuck on every
Right, right.
week. At that point, I'd like to have a further conversation when there's not as much going.
Middle of September. Sounds good. We'll fill you in later.
I agree.
I love a yes man.
I agree with it. I'll be here.
Okay, what's next? Letter of support
If I
to
can make
Mass.
the motion on this?
Yes, would you?
Madam Chair, I vote to send a letter of support to Mass DEP for their tentative decision on denying Holtec's application for discharge in Cape Cod Bay.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Yes.
Good evening. I'm Elaine Dickinson from Harwich, Hillcrest Drive, and I appreciate you starting off with a positive vote. I'm kind of channeling Diane Turco, who couldn't be here tonight, but I think she's watching somewhere over my shoulder. Holtec's application for a surface water discharge permit to dump over 1 million gallons of Pilgrim's radioactive and chemically contaminated industrial wastewater into our precious Cape Cod Bay has been tentatively denied pending a public comment period through the end of this month, I believe. Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection has correctly applied the Ocean Sanctuaries Act, which prohibits dumping industrial wastewater into Cape Cod Bay. Holtec's dumping plan is illegal, plain and simple. We are asking the Harwich Select Board to join other towns across the Cape, the South Shore, and the Barnstable County Commission to express support for the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection's tentative determination to deny the permit to Holtec and urge the DEP final decision to fully deny the permit. This should be an easy ask.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else for discussion? Don?
Really quickly, Madam Chair, this shouldn't be a difficult decision. These guys entered into this with their eyes wide open. They knew that they were going into a nuclear site that was being decommissioned, and it's really disingenuous of them to say, well, our intent always was to just bury it somewhere, particularly ocean water.
Anyone else, or are we ready for a vote?
Ready to vote?
All in favor? Aye. 5-0, Joe? Okay, we probably won't get too much clapping on the next one, because we're discussing possible parking expansion at the Harwich Port Municipal Parking Lot. How should we start this? Public comment, us comment? What's the?
I think everyone knows why we're here. We had this conversation a couple weeks ago. It drew some letters. Bob Cohen, thank you for all the information you gave us. I would just say at this point, I support at least looking at a design of what parking could be in Harwich. Maybe we can start the opposition after the board says where they're at with it.
Okay. I'll go next, because I don't see why we can't use that. It's on our land. It's in back of existing parking. We can landscape around it. I think we can work to make it not unattractive, and I think we need the parking. Anyone else want to jump in? Don?
Julie had her hand up. I'll go after her.
I can't tell your hands apart.
So, being present at the planning board hearing when we tried this before, I'm certainly in favor of looking to create any additional parking that we can. We weren't talking about a ton of spaces. We were trying to do it well, and we're trying to do it more methodically this time. So I'd be interested in at least ascertaining what we could create and how well we can do it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This kind of came up on that citizens meeting on Saturday. If we're doing this, if we do review this, I would like to be able to layer that with a study also that pertains to trolley usage and loops on the on-season and how we could utilize outlying parking lots to more efficiently move people around. I think one of the subject areas that came up that's really true. I mean, if we're going to be looking at this, we need to be looking at the whole picture. There are a lot of people who just start out avoiding getting the beach permit and just park there and walk to Bank Street Beach. This is like a comprehensive problem. I think we ought to look at everything. How many people stay there way longer than they're supposed to? What kind of system a trolley would help out with in distributing people around, especially on the Wednesday nights. And also the parking lot, but I'd like to look at the whole picture.
Jeff?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think for me, I need to do a little bit more work about getting out to the site, seeing it. As I haven't walked the site, I don't know specifically how it would look or how it would lay out, but I'd be open and support the initial stages of exploring this option.
Okay. Anybody from the public wish to comment? Please just pull the mic so we can hear you.
Can you hear me
and
good?
give your name. Yes.
Is this good? My name is Kristen Ferrioli. I'm at 27 Pleasant Street. I live right next to the trees that you're talking about. So I invite any of you to come to my house and see what tearing those down would do to privacy, to noise, to the sanctuary that I call my home. I've owned my home for 20 years. I use it all summer as well as in the fall and winter when I come down as much as I possibly can because I love it here. I love this town. I chose it because it is a beautiful community. Unfortunately, I can't live here full time because my job won't allow it, but I'm here whenever I can be. So I like that you are entertaining the idea of looking at all possibilities. I think before you vote to say, let's make this a parking lot, let's try the other things first for another summer. This summer's over, that parking lot's empty. I walk by it, I walk through it every day. I also notice that there are a lot of peak times. I know the stroll is definitely a busy time. But I also liken it to when you're trying to go to the grocery store the day before Thanksgiving or the mall around Christmas time. You're going to circle and look for a spot, but you're not going to build brand new parking lots for that week before Christmas or that day before Thanksgiving. Or when you try to go to a playoff game for the Mariners, it's busy. People are parking on the grass at the school. People are parking on the street. People are parking on the curbage across the way at the community center. It's not a one-time thing, but it's a temporary thing. I don't think you're going to expand parking lots all along Oak Street for those few times you have playoff games either. Do you know what I mean? So I'm just trying to think sensibly about there are peaks, I get it, and I know that it gets busy. I know people are circling around, but I also see that there are lines to get into some of these places, and there are hour-long waits for tables. So it's not like people aren't getting here. Businesses are getting business. Friday and Saturday night, stand outside the beer garden, and there's a line down the sidewalk all the way past the hot stove trying to get into that place. So if kids are Ubering here, or they're finding spaces somehow, but they're getting here. Another point I want to make is that, like you spoke to, is that there are a lot of people using the lot for beach parking. Again, I see it all the time. I'm at that Bank Street beach, and I see the people pulling up and dropping off, and then Dad goes and brings the car back to the parking lot. So I do think that that needs to be looked at as well. That also could alleviate your need to have more parking, because then you would free up that parking. I don't know if there's enough information for people to know that you can go to other beaches and pay by the day, because people come here for vacations and they're just kind of pocketed in this neighborhood, and they might not realize go down the street in Red River, there might be more parking and you can pay to do that, or Earl or other places. So I just don't think the signage affords people the ability to know there's other opportunities for parking, that it's just not all in that one spot by the Chamber of Commerce. There's also, I know there's been some talk, and there had been some expansion behind the banks. There was that dirt lot that says employee parking, so some people are not sure, can I park there or not? Because it says literally employee parking. And some people I see circling around the lot, not going over to that open lot that they could park at. Maybe use valet parking for some of these restaurants that don't have their own parking lots. Maybe they could valet to some certain spaces, because when you valet cars, you can stack them on top of each other and fill things more. And that might help you. So I don't want to take up people's time, but again, I invite you to come in my backyard and think and look around and see what kind of a sanctuary that is and see what this would do to it. And I ask, raise your hand if you would like that next to your house. I don't think you would. If you came to my house, I think you would say, wow, she's right. It's not a lot of trees, I get it, but it's just enough to give us that buffer to make it business to residents, make us feel we have a neighborhood. It's a busy street as it is. It's loud as it is with the parking. It's just enough of a buffer just so we still feel protected. And you take it down, and I think we're going to feel very exposed. And I think it's going to cause a lot of traffic and safety problems as well, but that's a whole nother issue. But I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is John Hansen. I'm here with my wife Donna. We live at 24 Pleasant Street. We're directly across the street from Kristen, and our house looks directly at the parking lot right now. I would venture to say that I don't think any of you would like to wake up every morning and look out your front window directly into a parking lot, whether it's full or empty. We have a very nice buffer that I believe was deeded to the town many years ago, and my understanding is that there was actually some restrictions in that deed that prevented doing exactly what you're trying to do. I certainly support what Kristen said here, and thank Mr. Howell for his comments. I think really looking at other alternatives is really something the board needs to do. I walk through town every day with my wife and see the traffic. I also support the findings that there are many people who park there all day for the beach. You can see them unloading their chairs and coming back in the evening. I really would ask you, and I don't know what the details are, but there's that large parking lot behind the two banks. The banks are closed in the evening. The real need for parking that I see during the summertime and the summer hours, summer months, is the evening when the restaurants are full and a lot of people are going to town. There's a huge parking lot back there that is completely empty. And I would ask you, could you somehow negotiate or talk to the banks and say, could we allow general parking in those lots after 6 p.m. in the evening. Right now, there's signs at all of the spots that say, for bank customers only, you will be towed if you park here. And the lot is completely empty. So I would ask you to, to look at alternatives. The trolley idea. There are other, there are lots down on Bank Street. The Bank Street Beach the parking lot is not used in the evening. The lot down to the post office is not used in the evening. So I think there are other ways and other things to do that we can look to. We understand the problem, and I think there are alternatives that can be looked at. We want to have harmony between our residents and our businesses. I think that's what makes Harwich Port a great place. It's a great place to live. It's a great place to come and visit. It's a great place to go out to eat. We like that. We support that. But we feel as the residents on Pleasant Street that, we want to preserve our neighborhood. We want to, preserve, some privacy, to have a buffer. And as Kristen said, please come over to our house, to her house, and look and see what you might potentially be taking away from us. We want to keep Pleasant Street pleasant. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Before the next speaker, can we just clarify? I thought the banks, and maybe Joe could help me, I thought the banks had made some type of formal agreement that their lots could be used after hours. Am I imagining that?
Always used.
Joe?
So I'm not aware of that, but if I may, Madam Chair.
Excuse me, one person at a time. Joe?
So I'm not aware of that at this moment, but we can research that as well as the deed restrictions on the current property, so we can look into that.
Okay, Julie?
So just to clarify, when we were on the board previously, TD Bank allowed us that smaller lot. And that was to alleviate some of the parking issues, to allow employees, that's why that sign is there, to allow employees to park there, so that would free up other parking for other people. And as far as the banks go, anytime I'm in downtown, that's where I'm parking. So that lot is always full. Those parking lots, well, if you're there on a stroll night, then they're totally full. And that's where locals know where to go to park if they can't go in the municipal lot. And we have, as a board, looked at parking for several years. And so in terms of the trolleys, I think that's a great idea. We talked about that at length. Talked about doing a shuttle from the middle school, maybe over here to Town Hall in the evenings, and down Bank Street. All of that should be explored. Some of that will increase some budgets. Everybody should keep that in mind. If you're going to have maybe a couple of rec kids be licensed to drive those vans. So we have looked at multiple levels of how to increase parking or how to get people in and out without having to do, we have limited space, we have limited footprint, we have limited parking. So we have, as a board, and this board has changed a few members, but I think we all remain dedicated to improving whatever we can in Harwich Port. We've worked hard on noise, we've worked hard on parking. So you have to bear with us while we try to look at all avenues of where we can maybe create a few spots. Maybe it doesn't work. I'm happy to come to anybody's house and check that out. But as a board, we're also trying to function for the whole town. And so if we can create a few spots, if we can create some type of shuttle, I think we're all collectively for that. Can't speak for all of you, but I think that we've put a lot of time and energy into this parking situation, and the reason I feel the need to share that is to clarify the parking about the employee parking in the banks, but also to make it clear that this board has taken this seriously for quite some time. This is not new to us.
Okay, back to public comment. Thank you for your patience.
Doug Carlson, 10 Pleasant Street. I'm very familiar with the neighborhood. I've lived in Harwich for 25 years. My family's been in that same house for over 100 years. When it was just a dirt road, and Pleasant Street is still a very beautiful, charming neighborhood. And I just think for the taxpayers on Pleasant Street, it's just a slap in the face, especially the people who live right next to that wooded lot, to have parking placed there. And I was here before the board about 4 years ago and made the suggestion that we use the middle school parking lot and have a shuttle of some kind that the business owners could fund, or the old firehouse lot. And that suggestion was very well received, but we haven't moved forward on it. I also question the logic of building a new parking lot when most days of the year, there are plenty of parking spaces. It's very rare. I'm happy to have people park on the side of the street in Pleasant Street in my neighborhood in front of my house on the music stroll evenings. That's fine with me. I'd rather have that than pave a new parking lot that's going to be empty, 350 days out of the year. I also question, do we have the right to use, do we have access to the parking lot at CVS? That's a very large parking lot, Post Office Square. And why can't we use that? But I just really, I think as a taxpayer on that street, substantial taxpayer, as everybody on Pleasant Street is, I just think it's a slap in the face to consider building more parking spaces there.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah.
Evening, Madam Chair. I'm Bob Cohn. I sent you guys a packet of information, part of which I'd like to go over. I've got handouts, if you've got the time.
Can we do it briefly?
This has an awful lot of information that is pertinent. I'll try to be as brief as I can.
I'm gonna say you've got 10 minutes, okay? Yep.
Thank you.
Les?
Thank you.
We're not going to take an action tonight other than...
We just got that information.
Madam Chair,
last
we are
Yes.
not taking an action tonight,
Right,
and we have this whole packet.
okay.
We still have two other big agenda items.
I will be quick.
We're gonna give you 5 then, okay? Because we've given other people a few minutes.
Evening, Madam Chair.
And if I
and
may,
members-
real quick, if we could ask the audience to hold the applause until the end, we can maybe get through this quicker. We know you're happy about the comments that are made, and we are listening.
And as Michael said, we are not making decisions tonight.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. I'm Bob Cohn from Pleasant Street. I didn't want to echo what my friends and neighbors on Pleasant Street and north of 28 neighborhood have just said. I believe that the wooded lot at the corner of Pleasant Street and Schoolhouse Road forms a critical part of the balance between our neighborhood and the commercial area, which is in fact the backside of the business area, a 3.5-acre stretch of parking lots that already extends more than 300 feet into the residential zone. I also believe that doing away with that green space, expanding the parking lot more than 500 feet into the residential zone would do our neighborhood significant, if not great harm. It would degrade the pedestrian street life of our neighborhood, would likely bring in more traffic and late night disturbances, and generally harm our quality of life. It would also do significant harm to our property values, our ability to rent and sell our homes. Fortunately, there are a number of alternatives which I'd like to present to you, most, if not all of them, better than expanding the Schoolhouse Road lot, most of them, if not all of them, cheaper. So I did a parking survey 5 years ago. What I have before you, handed out, is a new parking survey that I just finished last Sunday, 2 Sundays ago. I surveyed 15 different lots over a 2-week period between August 1st and 13th. As this is a peak time, it should be a good sample. I did surveys at 7 p.m. Generally, and 4 additional weekend surveys around 9 p.m., and they generally took about half hour. Wednesday nights are not included. Handicap spaces are also not included. Weather on most sites was really great, with some exceptions. One of my points of focus was shared parking, which is both space and cost efficient and reduces the impact on neighbors to create a more attractive, livable, and inviting village. I believe the survey shows that we have several opportunities to both improve current shared parking and expand shared parking to currently underutilized lots. One of the big things, too, though, is cost efficient. As I remember from 2018, I heard the amounts $100, $150, $200,000 talked about for building the Schoolhouse Road lot. I'm sure it's a good deal more than it by now. I grouped for purpose of discussion, I've grouped the lots into several different groups. The core central lots, these were municipal employee and Mad Minnow. These were almost always full, sometimes with people looking for spaces. The central shared lots, TD Bank, Cape Cod 5, and Cape Roots / Waystack buildings. As I understand it, these have in fact already been made publicly shared after 5 p.m. That was one of the outcomes of the parking committee in 2019. However, these lots often had considerable availability, while the municipal employee lots were chock full with people circling. My sense was that people were unaware of the availability in those lots and were turned off by the forbidding signage. On average, there were 51 spaces in those publicly shared lots available during my survey. There's group 3 are the central lots with de facto shared parking, Capeside Kitchen and Pilgrim Church. I'm not aware of a formal agreement for those being shared, but people treat them as if they're public. They would fill up earlier because there's minimal signage there warding people off. Group 4 are in-town lots with potential for future shared parking, post office, CVS, and Heather's. I'm not sure what's happening with Heather's. Depending on what happens there, it may or may not be usable. As the post office is closed in the evenings, it may be suitable, be suitable for shared parking. CVS is open till 9 p.m., but even on the busiest nights, it stood more than 75% empty. Total of average available spaces from those 3 lots is 118 on average. Outlying lots, Group 5, Harwich Port Golf Club, 41 spaces, Bank Street Beach, 61, Christchurch Episcopal on Harbor Road, 67, Saquatucket Harbor, 130 or so. The last 2 are not accessible by foot because the sidewalk hasn't been completed yet. The first 2, Harwich Club, the golf club is 0.2 miles, 4-minute walk to Sativa, to Route 28. Bank Street Beach is a 7-minute walk.
Bob, I just want to let you know you've got 1 minute, so I want you to wrap up. We have the material. It's in the package for anyone who wants to see it.
This was not in the packet because I didn't get it to you until yesterday.
I'd like you to wrap up. You got 1 minute.
There are a number of alternatives. Improved signage at existing lots, that would give us 51 spaces. New striping, implements parking at Bank Street Beach and the golf course, 45 to 86 new spaces. Expand parking at in-town lots, maybe 118, as many as that, but more likely in the 90 range. And golf cart shuttles for some of the other places. All of these are better alternatives than cutting down our trees. Each of these would provide considerably more spaces. All of these would be less expensive for the town. And all of them would help preserve the current working balance in our neighborhood between residents and the business community.
Thank you very much. And for
I hope you will
anyone,
look at this because
we already have and we will further. And for anyone either in the room or in the public, a good chunk of it's in the packet. Mr. Cohen just indicated he has more. If you send that, I'm glad to include it.
I sent this to you yesterday, so it would not be in this meeting's
Will not
packet.
be in this, it'll be in the next packet then.
Madam
Yes.
Chair, if I may.
Yes, excuse me.
I
Joe?
believe the packet was updated to include that material.
Oh, it is in the packet.
I didn't see that, sorry. I didn't see an update notice either.
Okay, yes.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Donna Hanson at 24 Pleasant Street. My husband spoke previously. I just want to clarify one thing about the bank parking lot. I walk through there every night, and it is usually many spaces that are open. Yes, locals know to park there when they come down for the stroll or when they're doing something, but there are a lot of people here who are not locals and they don't know. And if they pull into that lot, and they've said this to me, because I've seen them circling, they'll see me walking and they'll say, "Are you leaving?" And I'm like, "No, but go park behind the bank." And they'll say, "It says we'll be towed." So if someone could just change those signs to say parking available after hours, and then we have placards all up and down the sidewalk there for the businesses, advertising, their different businesses. Why couldn't we have a placard at the beginning and somewhere else in the parking lot saying additional parking behind the banks? And then that would direct the people who aren't from here to those spaces. And it would just be really, really helpful if somebody could do that little thing. And try that first before you cut down the lot that shields our neighborhood. I mean, we live here not all year, unfortunately, but we feel such a neighborhood on Pleasant Street with all these people, more than we do anywhere else that we live. It's a neighborhood. We abut the business district, but please help us to continue to be a neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff, yes.
You know, I just want to let you all know, I hear what you're saying, I respect it, I acknowledge it, and I thank you for coming out and standing up and speaking up. It is important. And I like options. I'm an option guy. I think it's a really good presentation you all put forward, and I think you've given the board some things I'll speak for myself, I know you've given me some things to think about. So I'll be over at your houses tonight around 8:30. I'm a Scotch guy, I'm an option guy and a Scotch guy, so just have it ready. And I'm happy to sit there for as long as you want and have a conversation.
9:45, and I do the bird.
Okay.
Richard.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Richard Waystack. My name was brought up with Mr. Cohen's report.
I think you've done a great job by adding your spaces.
I just want to clarify, and I understand the pain of the residents. I've had a building in Harwich for over 25 years, and I have 10 spots directly behind my building. I have an access deed to all of the parking at Cape Roots. But we put, and I've heard about the signs, we have to put the will tow because we have people who are parking going to the beach. They're parking to go to George's. They're parking to go to the restaurants. And we have businesses in our buildings. I have 2 businesses, and one of them is an insurance company. And a lot of seniors in the community use that insurance company if there is no parking for those people, because people are going to the beach, et cetera. The parking after hours is not bad. Many of you are correct. During the day, it is horrific. Next door at Cape Roots, there are a number of condominiums there. There are reserved parking for the condominiums. There are actually very few spaces available for Cape Roots and for my business. The banks, they have to have those spaces available during the day. My signs do say, by the way, that after 5 p.m., you can park there. It does say that. If you look, if you look at my sign and read it, it says that. But the reason we have to put those signs in is because people who are coming and parking to go to the beach, they will park in those spots and spend 4 or 5 hours. And if there's not room for our business clients and customers, we have a very difficult time for our businesses. I understand your plight. I understand that. But understand the businesses also need to have that parking during the day.
Might I just make a quick mention? So there are in shared parking, you can have additional signage, not for yours if you already have it, but like below the tow warnings at the bank, you could add additional signs like bank parking only, Monday to Saturday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., public parking permitted at all other times, strictly enforced, that kind of thing.
Thank you.
Might I ask one thing? If we're going to get really involved in this, might we think about having another parking committee? I hate saying this, but it might be.
Let us take that under consideration. Thank you for your thoughts. Anyone else? Okay. Oh.
I'll keep it short. Bob Nickerson, Harwich Port. I'm not going to go through all the same points because I think,
Thank you.
First, how many people are opposed to taking those trees down? Come on, let's see. You all didn't come up here. All right, so just to get an idea, there's a lot of people that aren't happy with this. So my point I want to make right now is in July and August, packed out, get it, right? So we're going to take the trees down, put in parking spaces, and for the rest of the year, those spaces won't even be used because we only need it for this short, high-level period. So we're going to take out this greenery, this whole thing about taking a sustainable Harwich, and we're going to take out these trees that will never be replaced ever again. So if this doesn't work well, you're not going to ever go back and put these trees up. We'll all be dead by the time they're big enough. So this is something you really need to think about. It's just really kind of bothersome to me. The other thing is, these boards give spaces to restaurants. So you got 14 spaces when you get your permit. Oh, we don't have enough on our lot. We give them 14 spaces. You've given out so many spaces, you've created half this problem because you have given those spaces away already. So think about the neighbors. Think about the town when you're making your decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay, yes? They got you locked in there.
Hi, I'm not from Pleasant Street. I'm from Miles Street, and right around the corner. And I think if you're going to go over that area, and you need to walk around Miles.
Oh, I'm sorry, you need to give your name.
Bob Bench, 41 Miles Street.
Thank you.
But let me back up. We went through this 5 years ago. There was a lengthy legal briefing presented to the board that said you couldn't do it. So first of all, you've got to go back into that legal briefing and go through all the arguments as to whether you can or cannot actually take that property. That's number one. Number two, like everybody else says, it is a buffer between the commercial part of the town and the residential part of the town. Now, in the residential part of the town, 5 years ago, I said people were investing tons of money in those two streets. Well, 5 years later, they've invested a ton of money in those two streets. And I think you need to respect the level of investment that's gone into those two streets in terms of property improvement or new homes altogether. To knock down those trees and introduce the commercial activity at 28 into that neighborhood, I think would be a disgrace. And I think you really need to consider the residents of the community as well as the commercial people in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, obviously, there needs to be a lot more discussion about this, and we do appreciate everyone that came out to say their piece. And I might have moved you along, Mr. Cohen, but we do take your packet seriously. You give us a lot of data, and I appreciate that.
Madam
But
Chair?
we will move on. Yes, Don, sorry.
Just quickly, I'd like to see some sort of deliverable here at the end of this. What would it take for us to launch an investigation about shuttle buses, frequency, expense, who might pay for them? And can we ask for that to be given to us at a future agenda, like the next meeting, about how we would start that?
Michael?
I think a couple of the speakers said the summer's almost over, and I feel like we have a little bit of time. And given everything else on our plate, I wouldn't support giving a date now unless it was a couple months out, because I think we're very behind on some other things. Each board member has said they want to go out and look. Jeff, certainly for Scotch.
Be there later. I'm still coming.
Go out and look. I do think the town administrator has some homework based on a legal briefing conversation and a deed. We can bring up past conversation, past notes. One point that a lot of residents made in Bob Cohen's presentation, and Bob, I know I emailed you back, probably not as detailed as I normally do, but a lot of the parking lots in your presentation are privately owned. And the bank was very reluctant to even give us the employee parking when we went to them, and I think it was related to liability issues and just opening up their parking lot. CVS, absolutely, the owners of that said no at that time. They were not interested. Can we reapproach them all? Yes, and we will. I agree with you on deliverable, but I'm not sure I'm ready to put a.
I just don't want to find us in April saying, oh gosh, we don't have enough time to do it for this year.
I think if we gave the town administrator, say, 30 days to do the legal background and the deed research, that would be a good starting point for a second conversation, as well as site visits and discussion with the Chamber of Commerce.
I really want the bus to be part of that.
Joe, any thoughts
Yeah,
on
just
that?
that when you discussed this earlier, I took the liberty of putting a placeholder article in for the next annual town meeting as well. We don't have to wait until then, but there's also that mechanism to further the conversation and the action.
And that placeholder is.
Whatever the board decides through the article.
What was that?
I was asked what action,
I
and I
just asked which
responded,
action.
whatever the action is that the board determines.
So that could be that parking lot or a shuttle bus or something else.
Correct.
It's an open item. So that means we'll get to that when we get to the articles,
Oh,
correct?
no, we need to have some vetting of.
Right, but it would be part of that process. Part of preparing for the article would be looking at those options. You're looking
Correct.
at me blankly.
No, sorry. That's just the function of the time. No, my comment is meant to suggest that there are things that will be done immediately, such as the investigation of some of the questions that were raised. However, the town is also contemplating further action through an article at the annual town meeting. So, I would hope that people take comfort in that.
Okay.
That it is not going away, it's an active discussion, and the board will have a placeholder upon which you can expand.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Hi, Marcia Casey, 29 Pleasant Street. And I will be brief because I know you want to wrap this up. But I just want to remind people that a few years ago, when the parking committee was in place, they did discuss shared parking. And Cindy did work with the banks, and she was able to get the shared parking, which was great. And I recall that she even updated the little town map to say parking in the shared lots, which is also great. But people who come here at 8 o'clock at night, they're not going to the chamber to get that little map. So what I'm really just asking is update those signs. That's simple, that's easy, it won't cost very much, and you'll get a lot more spots than you're gonna get from that little treed lot. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, I think we're gonna move on. We are at F under new business,
On
Jeff?
F, yes. I move that we approve the following special permit applications. One-day entertainment permit for Harwich Center Cultural District. Event to be held at Brooks Park Gazebo, 1 Oak Street on September 11th, 18th, 25th, October 2, 9 of 2023 at 5 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Sound check at 5 to 5:30 and show from 6 to 7:30 recorded or live music amplification, dancing by patrons. Also a one-day entertainment wines and malt permit. Heather McKenzie, her 70th birthday party, private event to be held in the library at 204. Don't all show up. On September 23rd, private event 2023, 6:30 to 9:30, recorded or live music amplification, dancing by patrons, and an incredible light show. One-day wines, and also a one-day wine and malt permit. Heather McKenzie, popular. Art photography opening to be held in the library at the 204 Sisson Road on September 22nd, 2023, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m., and it sounds like you all could attend if you wanted to.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0, Joe. Thank you. Old business B, review of committees.
Madam Chair, if the board doesn't disagree, can we take them out of order? I think a fair amount of these people left are here for golf.
Okay.
And the other one is a general discussion.
Yeah.
Your call, but
The only thing, I want to open with a few of the general comments, and we can have the discussion after. So let me just take 2 or 3 minutes, then we'll go into golf. I just wanted to, in speaking in general about the committee review, we've spent a lot of time on this. In fact, our first working session was on the structure of town government, and we thought we were pretty clear on it. The select board sets the policy. The town administrator implements that and manages the day-to-day operation. All of the division department heads report to the town administrator, and the committees are advisory to the Board of Selectmen, other than those that are regulatory. That's our structure. Whether we like it, dislike it, whatever, that is our structure. To change that requires a charter change. So that's all I wanted to say for general remarks, and now we can dip into golf. I also getting really kind of hoggy with the microphone here tonight, which is not my style, but I wanted to open the golf conversation. And first and foremost, I want to thank Roman Greer and Sean Fernandez, who, through their hard work and expertise, we have the jewel that is known as Cranberry Valley. I'm not a golfer. Before I even moved here 18 years ago, I had friends that talked about it. You got to go to Cranberry Valley. I don't think any of that is possible without the two of them. I had the very difficult experience of sitting down with the two of them a week or so ago, and they are very frustrated by what appears to be some conflict between the committee and them, and in particular, critique of their performance. And I just want to say, as a board member, that I have nothing but praise for their work. I also know some of you golf committee people. And I also thank you for your hard work and for your knowledge and expertise that you bring to the table. From what we've done in reading in the last couple of days, it appears to me, and Jeff will take this one step further, it's become very apparent to us why there's confusion about your charge, because there's charges that conflict with one another all over the place. So I think we're in sort of a twirl here, and with that, that's a technical term, I will turn it over to my compatriot.
Well, thank you. And being the liaison to the golf committee, which is something I asked for, because I believe I have a special set of skills and I'm perfectly suited for that position. Golf has been a part of my life for a long time, and running golf courses also has been a part of my life for a long time. So over the last 10 weeks, I've spent an awful lot of time on and with the golf committee, with Roman, with Sean, with other residents, constituents, golfers, so forth and so on. And I want to start by echoing Madam Chair's points about the jewel we have as a golf course, the town asset that we have. Looking at the pass holder, 2023 pass holder satisfaction survey, I just look at 96%, 86%, 96%, 84%, 75% in the good to excellent range. What this indicates to me is that the people who are running the town asset are doing a fantastic job. Now, that doesn't mean that things can't be looked at and changed, and that's what the golf committee's for. And I will also say that we have a few things that need fixing. And we have, first and foremost, again, Madam Chair, we have a passionate, bright, very committed group of golf committee members, and I've gotten to know some of them, and I've met with Madam Chair, and she's just fantastic. But we also have a very unclear charge for those volunteers to follow. And Madam Chair and I had a conversation today basically saying, how are they supposed to know what to do when I can't even figure out what to do? But in this municipality we call Harwich, anything that's confusing refers back to the charter. And I'm learning as I go, 11 weeks on the job now, but who's counting? And I've learned that whenever there's confusion or something that does, or something that conflicts, you refer back to the charter. So this is not about the golf committee. This is specifically about all committees that we're taking a look at in determining whether or not, A, their charge is clear and concise, and B, whether or not they are in fact following the charge. There is a disconnect between the director of golf and the superintendent with the golf committee, and rightly so, as I stated. It's very challenging to understand the roles of these fine people sitting right here with all their eyeballs staring right at me. So the select board must create a charge, and it has to be clear, and it has to be easy to follow, and it has to be something that our golf committee can wrap their arms around and succeed, and give value to the golf course that I know you all want to provide, and give value to Roman, and value to Sean, and value to the select board, who ultimately are the advisory committee too. So I'm going to stop there, and I'd like to hear some other, input from other select board members if they feel that they would like to do that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I preceded you as the liaison last year, and there were admittedly major problems. I think everybody in the committee understood that. I think we understood that. And as you sit here right now, I'm pretty sure you all understand you have no direct relationship to the governing the day-to-day activities of the employees who are under the town administrator. And I think I also made it clear as I handed off to Jeff, you were there at that meeting, that you don't have final authority when you're discussing rates or policies, but you meet to discuss those. You act as a buffer with the community to be able to hear those concerns, and then you come back here for a validation or not, because you don't have final authority. But the biggest thing I thought was a problem, and I hope that that is resolved at this point. You're right about making it clearer in writing, but the biggest thing that was a problem was there was like little subdivisions of the golf committee where certain people got to go to Roman's office, and I think he started getting to the point of he started thinking ultimately that he was serving those 2 or 3 people who were showing up as opposed to them reporting to the town administrator, which I thought I made pretty clear right before Jeff came in, is absolutely not your role. I mean, you're not supposed to go and tell Roman or Sean how to do their work each day. If there's something that's concerning that the golfers are concerned about, you put it on an agenda, you discuss it all publicly, and then when you come to a conclusion, you come back here to see whether we agree or don't agree. And if I'm wrong about what I said to you, you can just raise your hands and say, that's not the way I understood it. But I'm pretty sure that that did not get accomplished until, I don't know, say a month before Jeff became the liaison. So if we clarified the charge with the understanding that the remaining members here are committed to it working just as I described it, I think this can work, because you still need a place for the public to be able to filter their concerns and bring them back to us.
Anyone else? Michael? No?
Not yet. I'm not a golfer, I'm not their liaison. Other than Top Golf, I couldn't tell you much about golf.
Julie, do you want to jump in?
I am not a golfer
Okay.
either. And
So, Madam Chair, may I, just a couple more points to Dawn's points. You're absolutely right. And through my 3 or 4 meetings with the golf committee, my meeting with Madam Chair, the final meeting I had was with Charter Bylaw and the golf committee. It was a joint meeting. And that's where I like, going into that meeting, I'm just going to be honest, I felt like everything was moving in the right direction. I felt that the meeting started off really well. You all created some language that for Charter Bylaw Review Committee to look at and take into account and your recommendations, and I thought that was great. You started off with a bang by saying we are an advisory committee to the Select Board. But then there were really 3 points that were made that I needed to sit and listen and write it down and make sure I heard it right. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, that meeting was not recorded or televised. So there is no way for the Select Board, or anyone else from the public, for that matter, to go back to that meeting and watch it so they could see exactly what I'm speaking of right now. One point that was recommended was that the director of golf, the golf committee should be part of the director of golf's review process, the annual review process. That's what was said. I wrote it down. There was also a point made that removing the town administrator.
Please don't talk in the audience, because it messes up the TV. If you need to, just step outside and come right back in, okay?
And you'll also have time for public comment as well.
Absolutely.
There was language about removing town administrator from certain paragraphs in the charter as it relates to the golf committee. And then there was one other one that was more of a wish, and I can understand where this was coming from, almost mandating that the director of golf provide requested information by the golf committee to the golf committee in a timely manner, so that there can be cooperation in both directions. Those 3 things made me feel like we went backwards to day 1, because that's not at all the role of the committee, of the golf committee. So I'm going to let that sit now, give a little more information for you to hear about, and again, I wish we could all go back and watch, but I sat there and I took those notes, and what I have written down is exactly what I heard. So I'll stop now. That's all from me now, and if they would like to hear any more, and then I can come back and finish.
Did anybody on the board want to comment further? John?
if that, I mean, I have no reason to believe that you're not accurately portraying that. And I did understand that there was at least one meeting because of technical problems. They couldn't start the recording. But that would be an accurate portrayal. You don't get involved in or appraisal of a town employee because you don't govern their activities. And everything beyond that is you take information in and you bring it to the Board of Selectmen. And if the Board of Selectmen doesn't agree, they don't agree because they're advisory and they don't run the golf course. So what you're saying is fairly accurate up to that point. Is like, I thought we had an understanding that they meet, they gather information. They never go to Roman's office to do that. They always have him come in, say things in public, discuss what any concerns are, and then achieves things through a vote of the committee, not through individual members.
I'll also add, Madam Chair, it's not, I want to make it clear, I have not given up on the golf committee. I just see where the trouble is, and the trouble really lies with the unclear charge that you all have to try to figure out literally on a week-to-week basis, or a meeting-to-meeting basis. So I will leave it there, and maybe we could open public comment, and then I
Sure.
can finish up.
I just want to check with
Yeah.
Joe. Did you want to comment at this point?
Just to say that I appreciate comments that were made relative to two great employees. And I don't want to go any further than that. These employees have rights, they have representatives, they're not here. And so if we could just continue the discussion relative to unnamed employees that run the golf department.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then we just need to keep an eye on that because we don't want to abridge their rights.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, we're open for public, you gotta duke it out. Whoever gets to the mic first, how's that?
I'm good.
Thank you. So hopefully the second time's a charm.
Just say your name again in case someone's forgotten.
Yes.
I haven't.
I'm Carol Fuller, 3 Ashley's Way in Harwich, and I am the newly elected vice chair. Although I wanted to make it clear that I am not speaking on behalf of the golf committee per se, because we were not invited guests for this meeting. I just heard your select board meeting. I read the agenda, and I knew that you canceled our last meeting, which we had, I think the day before we were meeting, we had prepared for. So I kind of tried to put 2 and 2 together, and thought I should offer some of my comments if you would indulge me. So, as we have spoken, Cranberry Valley is one of the largest revenue-generating facilities in the town of Harwich, and serves our town residents, our non-residents, and our summer visitors alike. And we on the golf committee are dedicated to the stability of the golf course and its continued contribution to our town. The Chartered Golf Committee's history has been one of support, both to the director and the superintendent, and for its many and most important projects. In fact, in the last 10 years, though I have only been on the committee for 4, Martha has been on for, I think, 9, nearly all the major initiatives were either generated by or broadly supported and assisted by the committee. Projects such as the cart barn, solar array, and the electric carts. And there are many, many important future initiatives and changes in the planning stages. The committee views its role as representing the best interests of the taxpayers of the town of Harwich. So that's kind of what we think our first thought is. and continuing to work with and support both the director and the superintendent. This is evidenced by what we thought, until you heard you speak, Jeff, by the most recent rewarding recommendations to the Charter Review Committee in its most recent meeting. The committee's obligation and primary role as advisory to the Select Board may mean there are times when we depart with the recommendations made by the director. Those times in the past have been few, some very minor, and some consequential. When or if we do depart, our obligation is to advise you, the Select Board, of our reasons. Those reasons are for your review and your final decision, and we understand that. I think one of the difficulties has been we might depart, could be slight. We haven't had a venue of communicating our reasons why. So, Julie, I know in one meeting, it was rates and fees. We departed with the recommendation, but we never provided you a reason why you might have voted in a very different way or not. But you didn't have a reason why, so why would you even think other than what the director had recommended? So I think if we are to remain a committee, we need to have that kind of vehicle where we can communicate any departure or support, in fact. And our role as support, as you pointed out, Jeff, is, in fact, as important. And I'm disappointed to hear, Mary, that your discussions were that you felt that the director and the superintendent did not feel the committee was supporting. I'm pretty certain you would agree one of the most important aspects of running any successful entity is transparency. The golf committee meetings are the only vehicle and venue open to Harwich residents to hear what is happening on our facility, current, short-term plans, and long-range planning. But equally important is to have a public venue where our taxpayer voices are heard and questions answered. You have told us, you, Don, you, Jeff, and you, Mary, have told us that this is very important to you, and we have taken that piece very seriously. Every town on Cape Cod that has a golf course has either a golf committee or golf commission. The Harwich Golf Committee members are selected by you through a resume submission, an interview process, and I assume selected based on our backgrounds, expertise, value, and contribution that can be made to the committee and then subsequently to you. You recently named 2 new members with outstanding business and financial backgrounds, and we now have a more equal gender balance on the committee. In total, this committee, in my opinion, has a depth of career-long expertise in multiple financial and business areas and combined hundreds of years of playing golf. That's my idea of a joke. It also has a newly elected chair, vice chair, and clerk. The Select Board may also want to consider another important element. The Golf Committee will remain a very constant resource and historical asset to the board, And that would prove invaluable to the town if town employees leave or retire from their positions. And finally, I would ask, should you be leaning in the direction of dismissing the committee, and based on the opinions of 2 town employees, that you provide the committee an opportunity to meet with you? You might be pleasantly surprised. The end.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Michelle Ryan, and I'm a homeowner here in Harwich. Recently retired from a long and successful career in corporate America, where I rose to the highest levels of finance in one of the largest corporations in the world. So last November, after observing a number of golf committee meetings that seemed to be a bit tumultuous and not really value or productive,
Sure that wasn't a selectman?
I decided to volunteer my time and my experience to the golf committee, because I, as a resident of the town, view it as such an important asset. And as a member of the golf club as well, I thought, well, this is a place where I have passion, and hopefully I can help make a difference. And you, as a select board, selected me and said, please join this committee. You know, I've developed significant leadership skills being on boards of global companies, leadership teams where we've had to work out some of the craziest, stickiest problems that one can imagine, and a depth of financial experience that, again, with the town's biggest asset, I thought could be helpful. I would say my 8 months now on the committee have been frustrating, to say the least, mostly due to a lack of clarity of our responsibilities. And I'm thrilled that there's actually clear acknowledgement of that. The town charter is vague in its description of our responsibilities. And when we've asked for clarity, we've literally been told it's vague on purpose, which is odd, but that's what a select board member told us. When we've asked for information that we've been later found out any resident in town could just go to the town clerk and get, we've been told, no, you don't get to get certain information. So without information and without clarity of what it is you want us to do, guess what? We spin, and I'm sure Roman at times is frustrated. It is, and I echo Carol's point, it's very disappointing to me personally to hear that Roman and his team continue to be frustrated. And
Chair, I apologize for the interruption. Again, I would just caution. There's no value in stating the employees' names time and again.
Okay.
Talking about performance,
Okay.
and I would ask through you to
Okay.
try to corral that.
I certainly didn't say anything about anyone's performance. I was following what the select board members said, but
I think
if any employee
Excuse me,
is.
one second.
Certainly.
The correct thing would be golf employees. Just refer to the golf
Yes.
employees.
If even necessary.
If you even have to refer to them,
Yes.
refer to them as the golf.
So
but
if
try to
anyone is
avoid-
feeling that the committee is not appreciating them, then that's something we have to focus on. I think Jeff, as our liaison, has given clear guidance to our chair to partner with the director of golf in a very collaborative way, and I think we're seeing that happening. At least that would be our committee's perspective, and if that's not everyone's perspective, we should work to understand that better. I guess I request from you, if you choose to continue with a golf committee, that there are two things that really have to happen that will increase the effectiveness of our committee. First, I think it would be very helpful for us as a committee to understand the select board's goals of the golf course. And that might sound crazy, but there's a myriad of things that can be balanced. There's the financial viability of the golf course, environmental sustainability of the golf course, obviously our resident satisfaction level, and there may be other things as well. And how you as a select board prioritize those certainly then has implications on how policies should be set by you and recommendations that we as an advisory committee should make to you. The second thing that I would ask is that we quickly either get an updated charter or at least get some basic ground rules that we can work towards so that we understand what it is that's necessary. Otherwise, we will continue to spin our wheels. One of the documents that was included in the agenda packet for tonight's meeting was a page titled The Harwich Golf Committee Additional Committee Charge. And it was page 35 of the packet. And if I read it correctly, I think it was from 2008. And the page states that at the time, the select board was looking to come up with clear responsibilities for the golf committee. And the page states that at the time that the select board planned to, this is directly what it says, plans to limit its involvement with golf operations to approving the department budget and the fee schedule, approving licenses within the context of achieving the golf course annual plan financial and service targets, and of course, we, the select board, will respond to requests from the committee for either information or support. I've already said, we asked for information and we're told we're not allowed to get it. Things that other town committees have said we should be able to get. So we need to get clarity on that. I mean, with this limited level of interaction between the select board and the golf course, if there was not a golf committee, it just seems really hard to understand how you would get clarity to many of the things. I don't think you have more time today than you did in 2008. I've heard multiple things be deferred here because your agendas are going to 10 and we're well on the way tonight. So I don't know how town residents can stay connected to issues at the golf course without the monthly meetings and without a committee that they know that they can reach out to with any ideas and issues. Certainly they can go to the leadership of the golf course, but sometimes they feel more comfortable coming to committee members. I do not believe it's in the best interest of the town to dissolve the golf committee. I think we can be valuable. I acknowledge in my 8 months, we have not done much to be valuable. From what I witnessed last year, there was dysfunction. But I think what we can bring, partnering with, collaborating with the director of golf, can really enable him and his team to achieve even greater things and hopefully free them up, and we can make recommendations to this select board. I would like to just address a couple of things that Jeff said as well. So what we attempted to do was rewrite our charter and bring it to the charter committee. And in so doing, we were hoping to create a charter that anybody in the town that picked it up had some, like, oh, that's what the golf committee does. This is how you get selected to it. This is how long your term is. This is what the committee's responsible for. And so there was a paragraph that stated, the director of golf, blah, 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 shall be under the day-to-day supervision of the town administrator within the scope of the policy and direction established by the golf committee. So what we said was, well, again, we don't even know what that means because we couldn't find any policies or anything that we've established. But we said, since it said elsewhere in the charter already that the director of golf reported to the town administrator, we didn't feel that was necessary. It was redundant to the charter. And what we were recommending was language, because in the previous paragraph we had said, we as a committee have a responsibility to work in collaboration with the golf director. That was new language also. So we were saying we have this responsibility, and in the following paragraph we were saying we wanted the golf director to work collaboratively with us. And we tried to define that by saying certain information that the chair of the committee and the golf director could work on to agree to had to be provided to us. Again, if we don't get information, we're useless. So that's where we were going with that. But it was not a way to say, we're taking over the supervision of the director of golf, and the town administrator no longer had that. Not at all. We didn't say he reported to us. Yes, we are asking that the director of golf provide information to the committee. Where else do we get it? How else do we know if there's if the overflow report is busting out and town residents who are paying to be members are getting bumped off of the T sheet 10 times a week because they can't make a reservation? How do we help make policy recommendations around should we cap membership if we don't know what's happening at the course? So there's basic information that we're requesting. We're not requesting employee files. And I think with some boundaries, it can make a lot of sense. And to the point of, should the golf committee be involved in the director of golf's performance review, that was certainly not part of anything we wrote into the charter. That was an ad hoc conversation that took place at this meeting. And a comment was made that if the director of golf is such a critical liaison to us, we just thought it would be helpful for his supervisor to know, was he doing that well? And if he is, that's great. But if he's not, and we're not able to do what you've asked us to do, somebody should know that. And that was all. I mean, this is not like, we don't want to write his performance review, and we're not saying we should have 90% of the weighting in it. But a quick question to the chairman of the committee seemed reasonable. So I thank you for your time. I hope that I can be part of a committee that adds value to this town, but I do not want to continue with what I'm a part of now. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Michelle.
Linda Sabula for the Bylaw Charter Review Committee, and I am the culprit who pushed the little button and the machine went into a do loop. This is my fault, but it just all of a sudden went blank, and then it had little yellow lines running across it. So I said, I'm not touching it again. And we didn't have anyone here to ask. So I would like just for the Select Board to know that at our last Bylaw Charter Review Committee, as part of our reviewing all of the charter sections, we asked the Golf Committee to come and talk to us. Before our meeting and before we posted our agenda, they had provided with us possible rewording of the Golf Committee section in the charter. They are taking this very seriously. They're not, I think that you should hear that they proposed things like changing their name to Golf Advisory Committee. They used words like collaboration. I think it was 3 sections they provided us with in writing what their board, their committee had voted on to provide to bylaw charter review, that the 3 sections, how it was worded, what they proposed changing. So we do have that. And I'm happy to provide that to any of you who would like to see it. I mean, they could provide it too. But they are recognizing and have recognized a level of conflict, of dysfunction, but a chunk of that is, where's the charge? And I think that we've had in other meetings, you have mentioned, people have mentioned, you can't find the charges to some of the committees. Well, at this point, maybe you stop looking and you just write them. That if they're lost, they probably existed. If they're lost, oh well. But just write them now. And maybe that's one thing you start with is the golf committee. What is their charge? And we have some modern, more modern charges that have been written over the past few years. Follow those formats. And I think that that will solve a lot of issues of the communication and who's supposed to be doing what. But the Bylaw Charter Review Committee does have these, and we will at some point more than likely be putting them forth as changes in the charter, if we so vote that as a committee. But thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Just if I may on that.
Yes, Michael?
Linda, your last statement,
Which one?
putting them forward as the bylaw charter review.
Potentially putting forward, we're looking at everything. We will have a series of recommendations that our committee is expecting to make to the board, to the select board. Section this, 1.2.7, add these words, take this out, etc. So that is our purview, not our purview, but our plan. And we are hoping that at the point where a consultant is hired, that we will have some conversations with that consultant as well as to best practices, but also listening to the community as to how they think our town should be run, and see if we can blend that into, the charter I know was written in 1986 or whatever. It's been amended a number of times. This is a good run-through to see how, in today's world, how should we be governing ourselves.
So my only question was, you said put forward. I wanted to make sure you meant put forward to us.
Yes, put forward to the select board, yes.
And I have.
Don't worry, Michael, no in-runs.
I have a lot more comments, but I'm going to hold them to the end. That I just wanted to clarify. And to Michelle, previous speaker, I'm the one that says often it was written vague for a reason, and we need to fix this document. So thank you, Linda.
Someone else? Step up to the mic, sir.
Hi, Steve Bolana, resident of Harwich and a member of the Golf Committee, newly elected clerk. Not exactly sure what that's supposed to mean yet, but we're going to figure that out. I agree with my colleagues on the committee, and I certainly was a bit dismayed to hear about what Jess had to say. I believe we 98% of the time plus support the director of golf and the town administrator and how the golf course is run. It's just a fabulous place by the scores that we've seen. I would like to propose, it's been my experience in business that it's very difficult to deal with a blank page. I believe, or I would like to propose, that we at the golf committee have a working session amongst ourselves and write operating procedures, a level down from the charter that says, this is how we're going to conduct our meetings. We know we're an advisory board. This is the information we need. This is how we're going to review it. This is what the outcome is going to be. It'll be a high-level proposal, if you want to call it that, with lots of detail behind it, but the proposal is something that can go to the town administrator and his charges that have anything to do with golf. It can go to the select board, and it can go to the charter committee. I'm not suggesting that the town charter, need to have that level of operating procedure detail, but if we define the operating procedure detail and we can reach consensus amongst the people here as, yep, that makes sense, Then the charter committee can take the direction of, okay, the charter needs to be in alignment with these operating procedures. But it should be very simple. I shouldn't say simple, but it should be very clear as to what the committee is supposed to do and how they're supposed to do it. We are not supposed to judge the employees of the town. We are not supposed to drive the performance of employees of the town. What we're supposed to do is we're supposed to look for opportunities where we can aid the town, where we can provide some research. We can use our experience, because you have a really strong, experienced golf committee right now on things. I mean, one of the future things that I would cite as an example, we just recently were approved last year, I think it was, Mr. Powers, or the year before, the $35,000 to do the study for the short course and the putting complex.
Joe?
So that would be a point of contention. The committee was not awarded that money. That was an appropriation for staff through a procurement by staff.
Okay, so I used the wrong term. It wasn't for the committee, but it goes to the project that I'm talking about, which is to look at the feasibility of potentially adding that as a value add to the golf course. One of the things that we did when we talked about it in previous golf committees meetings is that we found that there are companies, or at least one in particular, that in order to help facilitate getting young people involved in golf, which has always been a stated strategy of the golf committee, how do we keep refreshing the membership and get more and more of our young people in town involved, you can actually ask for a bid from this company that would cover up to 100% of the cost of the construction of the project. But in order to get that grant, there's going to be a ton of research that needs to be done. There's going to be multiple drafts of grant proposals that are going to need to be done. Everybody in this room, and certainly the director of golf and superintendent of golf, they're working like crazy already. We as a committee should be able to take that on, not to make a decision, not to even think about sending out a proposal for the grant, but as a draft that gets reviewed by the director of golf, gets reviewed by the town administrator, and/or gets reviewed by the select board. And if you say, yep, this is what you want to do and you want to go forward, we could be a tremendous time saver for the employees of the town. We could enhance the probability of getting the grant for the town. And that's what our role should be. It shouldn't be to try to worry about the day-to-day responsibilities of the golf course. That is being done by an employee of the town, and for whatever it's worth, I think extremely well. And again, back to Jeff, look at the results of the survey. Look at the tee sheet. I mean, people fight to get onto the Cranberry Valley. It wouldn't happen without the employees that are running the golf course. So again, I suggest that rather than asking the charter committee or the select board to try to define at a detail level what the operating procedures should be for the golf committee, what is in our purview and what isn't, give us an opportunity to try to come up with, again, a draft. And that's all it is. It'll be a draft that will have public input. It will be a draft that gets presented up through the hierarchy of town government and ultimately to the select board, that you can change anything that you disagree with. You can throw the whole thing out. Again, we're just an advisory board. I've worked in consulting for many years, and you can go to your client and give your client your advice, and they can say, thank you very much, go away. I don't want to do any of that. That's their purview, just as it is yours. But rather than asking multiple different groups in the town government to try to define how we should work, give us an opportunity as the committee members that have been trying to figure it out all along, to present to you our thoughts in a draft form of what the operating procedures should be. And you provide any changes or revisions that you see fit, or again, you can say, yep, this is all well and good, thanks, but go away. That's your purview.
Thank you.
So,
I can't let that go without making a few editorial comments. We need to be careful about procurement. Our town administrator is the procurement officer, and I don't think it would be wise to have others jumping into that. Joe, do you want to correct me on that?
Certainly not correct. I would just say that should you progress to old business BB, that's the update on the process that you've said has worked well. That was reimagined 3 years ago.
Okay.
So we have a procurement process. I think the board has felt that there has been success there, and that's in large part to our staff
Right.
and their competencies.
The other thing I want to clarify, before we talk about operating procedures, we need to have a charge. We don't need details. We need, where are we headed? What's this group trying to do? So while I appreciate your desire to have operating procedures, let's get the charge first. Okay, who else? Yes.
One more
Yes.
moment. I just wanted to.
If you just say your name again.
Carol Fuller. I just wanted to respond to something that Michelle said that you had mentioned, Jeff. You were very disturbed about the comment we had made about asking the director for information in a timely fashion. I think you said you were disturbed with that.
I said I was concerned. That led me to
Concerned.
be concerned that we were going in the wrong direction.
Okay, and I think I would like to go back and reiterate Michelle's position in that we can't do anything without information, and we certainly cannot, as you cannot, have a productive meeting if you don't prepare in advance. And so for us to walk into a meeting with questions and have not one piece of information, and I understand, and we've learned very quickly that everything that we do goes through our chair. We understand we act as a committee, not an individual. So boy, we have been hit over the head, but in a good way. I mean, we have learned a very important lesson in operating the town. In business, perhaps we didn't quite do it that way. But actually, it is much more efficient. It respects the director's time, the superintendent's time to go through the chair. One person acting as a committee, asking the questions. But when we ask for information, we need it. And we need it for you. Our recommendations are to you. They are also a responsibility to the town residents. So I don't know if you're coming out on the other side of the ledger, having heard that or not, Jeff, but we just.
Again, I think before we talk about information, we got to talk about the charge. And if the information is related to your charge, then it makes sense. But if it's not in your charge, it doesn't make sense.
And that was, I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Go right ahead,
And that was
Jeff.
more where I was going with certain, you can't blanket statement information because some of it isn't in the purview of the golf committee. And that information, I felt before I even came on board, was consistently being asked for and pressed.
Yeah, I guess we didn't know what our purview was.
Listen, there is not a lot that I disagree with what you've all said. I agree with the majority of everything you've said. Does anybody else want to weigh in, Michael? You said you had some comments. I would like to hear other board members and maybe Joe's input if,
Anybody want to jump in here?
Yeah,
Michael, go
I thought
ahead.
we would finish with the public before I.
okay,
Okay.
yeah, is there any?
More public? And I'd ask you, if you agree with what people already said, we heard it, we took notes. Repetition doesn't help any of us at 9 o'clock, so, but if you have something new to add, please do. Okay, all right, board, charge.
Yeah, we need to, and I think with the golf committee, work on what the actual charge is and expectation. Several things have been said that make sense, and I'll go back to Martha, Carol, on the fees. So when Roman came, or the director of golf came before us on fees, we took his recommendation. It went against what you want, but we didn't hear from you. So opening those lines of communication as an advisory committee to us has to include meetings more often, which I'm not a fan of meetings more often. but we, if we don't hear from you, then your opinion, and it could be in writing, could go missed. I'll be honest, part of the reason I went with Roman's recommendations, Director of Golf's recommendations, which I'm proud to say. I'm not sure that, I'm not saying anything negative, so I'm not worried about the employee. I went with him because he's our golf director, and that's what he brought forward and he believed in. And I didn't hear from the other side, and for me, being a non-golfer and a non-liaison, the only things that I was ever brought up to speed on related to the golf committee over years was the dysfunction. And I didn't hear anybody in this room tonight say there was no dysfunction. So, and my role at that point was to direct it to the interview committee where it belonged, or the selectman liaison, last year Don, this year Jeff, and have them deal with the dysfunction, which I think brings us all here tonight. And I think one thing we could all agree on is there has been a disconnect by that very vague document, the charter, thank you, Linda, that we absolutely need to correct and then throw away forever everything else that's been in writing and given to us, because from here forward is the only thing that really matters. Clearly, you're all passionate about golf. Clearly, you're all passionate about the golf committee. But most importantly, clearly, we have to tell you what it is we want when we want it. As far as the information flow goes, and I won't pick on the golf committee, I'll pick on the finance committee because one old member's here. There's often members of a committee that take off on their own and go seek out information for something that they may want. It doesn't matter what that one committee member wants whatsoever. It has to start in the room with an agenda item that the public can be part of, and the committee should vote on what it is it's seeking. If the committee's seeking something, it's incumbent upon us to get that for them if they're not getting it. And part of the charge through the town administrator, the chair, and your liaison, we need to look at how that goes, because the staff in town hall is very busy. And for individual members of each committee to come in and ask for X, Y, and Z doesn't work. For individual committee members to have a charge of their own and information that they want, that's not by the committee, and I think that that's where some of the we can't get it has gotten lost. We can't get it because it didn't come through the right channels, in my view, from the outside looking in, not being involved in the golf committee. So you have the right intent. We have a golf committee. Projects that you're speaking of, that's why we have committees, is to offer advice to the Board of Selectmen and be advisory to the Board of Selectmen on projects. So we have to figure out how to channel the day-to-day activity with the golf director and the golf superintendent, other town staff, and the Board of Selectmen. And I'm not trying to take this all on for us, because we can't with every committee we have. So I'm hoping that we could hit the ground running with a charge, or at least a draft of a charge that makes sense, that outlines exactly what I just said and more. But more importantly, your role, so that there's no confusion, and then you have to adhere to it. We can't, and I know certain numbers that people were looking for through the tax office or the finance director, that can't come from an individual member. It must come related to what your advisory role is and to the Board of Selectmen. That's my only opinion.
Julie?
So again, thank you for all of your hard work, first of all, because I don't think we've talked about the fact that you're all volunteers and we appreciate your time. We're lucky to have volunteers on staff in our committee, so thank you for that. And I'm not a golfer. I appreciate your point on, fees. It's true, because I'm just looking at what's presented, to Michael's point. I do think collaborating more is important, but I think we're here tonight for the same reason that we have other issues with other committees. So you're not being picked on. There are other committees. There are other committees that have the same problem. Unclear charges, lack of a charge, maybe some strength in previous years that hasn't really continued on. So for your committee, you're sort of a strong group and you're working on something and it's a sport and you have interaction. We have other committees that it's not a sport and, it's housing, for example. So, we struggle with all of this lack of information, and to Linda's point about, what's in the charter, what's not in the charter, how do we clean it up? So it's a big job. We're starting. We need to work a lot harder on it because there's a lot of pieces here that are really dysfunctional and lacking any kind of direction. So we hope, as we start to go on this, and Mary's working sessions have been helpful too, for us to have conversations about these things where we're really just trying to find out where are we wrong, where are we right, and how do we repair in the middle. I think that, a lack of information being provided to you, that got my ears up because you do need certain information to be able to function. However, it does have to come through the proper channels. And if you're having a struggle with any of that, then you go to your liaison. We're trying to get this information. I liked your point about, hey, if locals are getting kicked off and they can't get on, that's a problem. And that's a quality of life issue for that particular group of people that reside in our town. So I hope, as we continue to dive in, and there's so many more beyond you, that we are able to clean the charge up, rewrite the charge, or write a brand new charge and get rid of the rest. But I also just want to point out, I was on that committee, I was on the interview committee dealing with some of that dysfunction last year. And, it wasn't easy. But you understood that the drive to do something good was there. It was just how do you fix it? But part of that too, and I'm going off on a different tangent here, and this is again a problem for lots of committees, is the swearing in, is the ethics, is the don't be communicating by email, because you've got an open meeting violation. All of those things are not, I'm not speaking only to you, there's multiple committees that and that's part of our job, it's part of staff's job to try to figure out how we clean that up and make everybody function better and have the tools to function. So back to the initial thing is the charge. The charge is the problem. Let's fix it. I appreciate your feedback. I look forward to it. I'm not opposed to a draft being put together of what your thoughts are on how you think you should function. I don't have a problem with that. It doesn't mean it's going to work out the way you propose it, but at least it gives us a working tool to try to decipher and then work with bylaw charter review. So, Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I don't have any desire at all to do a sleepover, I want to be able to at least say a couple things here. I'm looking at the glass half full. We just went through, and I'm going to get myself into trouble saying this, the fiefdom period of the golf committee. There were a few people that created this labyrinth of process that was dense and opaque. Not everybody on the committee knew what other people on the committee were doing, so there were people that had more access and less access. There has been a lot of concerted effort to be able to move on from those people. The interview committee has put together over the last year and a half an entire committee, which I'm convinced, because this is the beginning of that. It's not, I know you've been on there for a few months, or a number of months, but there hasn't been the reorganization and the opportunity to see how it could function going into the future. I think that there are some really highly intelligent, highly motivated, smart, and collaborative people that are on it right now. And I really respect what you guys are trying to do. I'm pretty sure you're hearing the same thing, from all of us here. We can clarify the charge, but to be honest, for me, it all starts with people anyway. You could have a great charge with a lousy committee, and there's almost nothing you could do to fix it. So you've got great talent. Fix the charge and then move forward, because it's not rocket science. I've said that to you guys in the past. It's like, you don't set the policy, you recommend policies. You don't tell the employees what to do. You work with the employees, and it's all done together. It's not like one of you goes one day and another one goes another day. And I really saw right before Jeff wound up assuming the liaison duties there, that you were heading in that direction. And so I would like to just implore everybody to just calm down and be serious about fixing the things that are still remaining that need to be fixed. But I really appreciate everything you guys have done.
Joe, did you want to make any comments? Then I'm going to give it to Jeff to wrap up as liaison.
Sure, it would be, I think, more general, because I agree with what's been said. The proof is in the pudding's the charge. As we all go through this process going forward, and we're mindful of the charter, just going from memory, there are, I believe, 14 committees that are referenced under Chapter 7, and half of those have some connection to an employee. So as we go forward, I think it's critical that we seek the input of the employees as well, so that there is clarity for the folks that work for us and do the great work that we ask them to do.
Great. That's
Not
it.
particular to this committee, there's several
Nope.
that are there.
That was going to be part of our discussion under regular committee work. What we've talked about having the liaisons is each do a review of their committees. And step one is to talk to the employee, if there is one that's related to it, and ask that employee, what do you want the committee to do? Is it helpful to you to have a committee or not? And then work with the committee, and then come back for recommendations for what the charge should be. But I'm gonna let Michael, and then we're gonna let Jeff wrap up.
Thank you. And I was only gonna make that suggestion. Rather than, because I think they all came into the room tonight thinking we were gonna disband them tonight.
Right.
Have the liaison to the committee work with the town administrator and the 2 department heads first. Have the committee have a meeting and have a conversation similar to what Joe said? Steve said, sorry.
You won't forget him.
I can't read.
You will not forget that guy.
And then a meeting afterwards with yourself
Sure.
and the golf committee to go through some of the staff recommendations and then propose a charge to us that we could look at that makes sense, and then we'll worry about the charter.
Madam Chair?
Jeff, you got the floor.
Thank you. I agree 100%. I think that's the way this should be. I'm sorry you feel like you were coming in here to just get put on the guillotine chopping block one after the other. That was not in any of our minds. There is a question that remains. What do we do from now until that charge is created and delivered to this committee? My recommendation to the board would be this. I would like to see your committee work on exactly what Selectman McCaskill just mentioned, which is work on some language and some ideas that you could present to me. I will work with the employees of the town and the town administrator to begin crafting what we think the charge should look like. But I think it's important at this point, and I'd like you all to weigh in on this, to remove yourself from the day-to-day, what you thought was your charge, and just focus on creating what you would hope your charge could be. That way, there's a little breather everywhere, right? I don't want you worrying about golf course related things. I want you to work on the charge. I'm hopeful that this can get done sooner rather than later. But I think for right now, it would be a good idea to just have you work on that. I'll work on my part with my side of the table here, and then we'll reconvene. How do you all,
Anyone?
any other recommendations?
No, sounds
Nope. Michael?
As long as you can start tomorrow.
I'm gonna start tonight at Pleasant Street. Come to the mic, please.
Yeah.
Come to the mic.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Do you mean that you are going to continue to cancel our meetings until that chart, that we do that?
May I, Madam Chair?
You may.
I will not, no. I will not cancel any more of your meetings so long as your meetings, and I'm gonna have to ask Joe about procedure about this, as long as your meetings stay on the task of what we just discussed, which is crafting language of how you see your charge being formulated. Now, if I may ask Joe, Madam Chair.
You may.
How do they do that? How do they do that the appropriate way regarding the meeting itself?
Still has to be posted.
Still has to be posted, still has to be recorded, all, it has to be here in public, correct?
Yep.
As any other meeting would be.
Correct. And-
Correct.
And if I may, I think
Please.
you've given a great agenda topic to be on the agenda.
That was kind of my final point, was that would be your agenda topic until further notice. Yes.
So-
Well, I'm sorry, that would
Yes.
be you to do that.
So Michelle,
Sorry.
Michelle Ryan,
It's-
Michelle Ryan again.
Yes.
Jeff, are you saying then that the work that we've done in kind of rewriting our charter, scrap that and start again? Because in my mind, we've already kind of tried to
Yeah.
take that step. And I know Martha's reviewed it with you. She's reviewed it with the director of golf. We reviewed it. Like,
Sure.
I'm not, I'm trying to understand what the step is because I think we did it.
So, it was reviewed, and you're absolutely right, Michelle, and thank you for the question. I reviewed it briefly. I did not bring that specific document into the document I'm going to begin creating myself. So if that's where you all feel it should sit, then that's where it sits. If you want to meet again, and now that we've had this meeting, maybe there's some other things that have popped into your head that you might want to add, omit. I mean, I think I've given you a little direction on maybe not being part, and I remember that it was a comment versus it was not in your paperwork, but being part of an employee's annual review. I wouldn't put that in there. I would also, yeah, no, I just said that. I said it was a comment and it wasn't in your paperwork. But there might be some things tonight that we have discussed that you might at your next meeting say, we're gonna add this and delete that. I'm not gonna tell you what you should or shouldn't do, but I'll wait until you have a final product and you present me with that final product, and then I'll blend that with what I've been doing.
If you want to speak, you need to go up to the microphone, and Linda beat you to it,
to it.
Steve.
Gotta move fast. As a question, just as a resident, is the select board saying that they're going to be canceling meetings of committees? That's one that is new for me, and I'm a little perturbed about that. There are committees that do have charges and have been meeting regularly, so to hear that we're going to cancel meetings is very punitive, and I hope that's not the intention.
The intention is certainly not punitive, and that's not a general statement. We just thought golf should take a breather. Michael?
And if I may, I think with the.
Please don't talk on the floor, because Carol, please wait. We're happy to listen. We're happy to listen.
If I may, just to respond to Linda and to give the committee a little comfort, and if you, Michelle, feel you already have the substance of the change that the golf committee wants, and now back to Linda's point, the pause is why we're here tonight, not to start canceling meetings. But there was incredible dysfunction, and it led to employees of a certain division feeling a certain way. And this board and the golf committee, as far as I can see, both agree that the charge needs to be rewritten. So what is the point in continuing to have meetings until we put everything together and form a new charge? Now, I'm a fan of doing this within the next couple weeks so that we're not talking about major pauses or waiting a month or 2 months. But if the golf committee feels like they already have the basis of a document, and Jeff gets to meet with the town administrator and the 2 department heads and gets his note, and then a meeting is planned to go over those 2 and hopefully blend them and come back to this board with a charge, we're really not talking about missing much. But our option is continue to have meetings, continue to have civil uprest, which may be the wrong wording, but certainly some bad feelings. I see no point in continuing, and I do think it's the purview of this board to say, let's stop meeting until we fix the charge.
Okay, I'll buy that. However, I do think it's punitive because one of the statements that has been made this evening was we're going to leave the past back there, we're going to lead all this back there, and we're going to move forward. It's a little difficult to move forward if there are actions like that taking place. It's disappointing.
I won't be able
I'm
to
done.
sleep if I don't joust with Linda.
You'll be sleeping here if it keeps going on.
Linda, it's by no means punitive, and it is looking forward, not backwards, because we're trying to devise a plan to get people together. Right now, what are we gonna have them meet on? The same thing?
I understand, but I also was commenting towards Jeff's comment that he was going to be canceling
I
meetings.
never said that. When did I say I was going to be canceling meetings?
Okay, let's,
No, okay.
Whatever.
No, I'm sorry, Linda, but not whatever. I don't play the whatever game. I never will. I'm going to explain myself if you let me. Thank you. I will not cancel any more meetings. All I did was steer them toward their agenda. And then I mentioned clearly that if they don't have anything more to meet about, then they don't have to meet.
Okay,
That's all I said.
that's fine. I accept that, but I think the rest of the room heard what they heard. But thank you.
There's no cancellations of meetings going forward for the golf committee.
briefly, Steve, because we got to move on here.
I just want to make sure, because we were very dysfunctional, we broke rules. When we have this meeting to talk about the charge, the new charge, is it a working meeting? And if so, I know we need an agenda, I know it needs to be public, but you had mentioned, Madam Chairman, at the beginning that you folks had a working meeting, and it did not require public comment. Can we define it? Is this defined as a working meeting that still needs to be open to the public to view? But do we, is it one that?
Steve, that's what we did when we rewrote the charter. That's how it was set up.
We're going around.
Okay.
Okay,
That's it.
Thank you.
let's wrap this up. I think we are done, Jeff? We are done?
Yeah, I'm absolutely
Okay.
feeling super comfortable with where you all are going to go, and I'm looking forward to meeting with you and getting your information and blending it together with the information that we create on this side. So
Thank you all
for being here.
participating.
Steve, I know who you are. Steve, you
Microphone.
can't do that. You got to go to the mic.
I've just got a quick question,
Yeah, sure.
and a statement from you.
You have to identify yourself first.
Your name again, please. Steve, your name for the
Steve
record.
Kiersis, 15 Sandell Lane.
Thank you.
Harwich, full-time resident here, 12 months a year. You discussed with me the golf course at my house. Do you remember that, standing there? You mentioned to me, which I've been broadcasting to a lot of the guys, quote, "The golf course needs a rebalancing." Could you explain that?
I never said that to you, Steve.
Yes, you did.
Steve, come back.
Can you guys maybe take that
I'd be happy to talk to you about
privately?
that, Steve.
That's a quote, yeah.
I couldn't
Okay.
make that statement, Steve, because
Let's make.
Not on the agenda.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's it. We're going to make that a private conversation between the two of you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your participation. We are going to move on to the update from the town administrator on ongoing projects.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you'll see in the packet, there's a memorandum.
If we could, Sorry, Madam Chair.
Yes?
We have not finished the actual item because we kind of skipped past your original statement and we've had no comprehensive review of our process on charters.
Thank you.
Thank you. You did a great job opening it.
Well, thank you.
Before all that.
Now if I can just find my notes. I hate to have to go to the computer because I printed it.
Wasn't that meeting started yesterday?
What?
Didn't we start the meeting yesterday?
The first part was to talk about the overall review and how we were gonna do it. And I think I got through the first part about how the charter is defined and who does what. A few of the things that the team, let's go back to the beginning, Mary. We had a fabulous team, one of whom is sitting here, Emily Mitchell, Jen Clark, and our own Ellen Powell, who assists in the admin office. And what they suggested as some items that we think about doing, and there were listed in there, one is potential to pause the interview process for new committee members with the exception of regulatory or statutory committees. Just to the point of, while we're in the midst of all this flux, do we want to keep appointing people or do we want to put that on hold for the month or so that it might take us to do this? So comments, yes, no, maybe?
You want me to start?
Me?
You want me to start?
Go ahead.
Don and I discussed this in our last,
Yeah.
in our last meeting, and only because one of the applicants was for the Housing Committee,
Yeah,
and that was one of the charges that we've discussed going through. So saw no sense in appointing, and then the other one we appointed tonight. So I would like to keep the interview process going so that we can continue to build a bank of people that want to volunteer. And then as we go through these rebuilding of charges, we'll have people to draw from. Who knows where some of these may land? And I know in Emily's documents, some have an effect on other committees.
right.
So we are going to review it that way. Housing Committee happens to be one. There's several of them, so.
Okay, so.
If I may, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
It's incredibly embarrassing to have a delegate to Barnstable County that continues to make faces and smirk in the background and continue to have meetings and discuss things that aren't on the charge and then interrupt a conversation that we're having. So it is completely embarrassing to me, and I'd like to finish my statement before you huff and move chairs.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, but I hope we could just ratchet it down a bit.
I'm not sure that's possible here,
Well,
but I'll.
Michael, I wasn't making, I'm
So-
reading over
so
there,
back
I'm not
to the-
making
Back to the
faces.
charges.
Yes.
I agree with Emily's document on the comprehensive charge, on the comprehensive review of charges, and the recommendations on which ones to work on first.
Okay.
I think they did an outstanding job outlining them, and I would like to go back to, do we all understand our form of government? And we touched on it, but do we all understand the charter section related to the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator, and who reports to who, and where the committees report to? I do.
Well, I read it way back 2 or 3 hours ago, so it's in the minutes. I don't think I'll read it again.
I'm asking before we skip over it in case the board members have questions.
I don't think board members have questions. Can I just add one other thing?
Can I just underscore what Michael said, because he had the discussion with me? I mean, it was a pretty elemental comment. It was, if we can't describe to the applicant what the actual day-to-day activities of that committee are, I can't even begin to understand how they could understand it. So it isn't necessarily to ditch people, it's to start off with what the heck is the charge and reimagine it if it needs to be something different. Because if we don't take a pause, then we're going to have a whole bunch of people that just rotate in and rotate out.
So if I understand both you and Michael, what you're suggesting is that you would continue to interview, but we wouldn't appoint until we knew the committee was
Not on everything. It was a pretty easy decision to put forward a Council on Aging person because we're not going to eliminate the Council on Aging. The regulatory, yeah, you're welcome. The regulatory bodies, they're going to exist. They have to exist. They're under state law. But everything else that's advisory to us, we had promised ourselves we were going to do every committee and look over everything. Nobody should read into that. Michael's right. We're going to keep interviewing people and bank them.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense to me. Anybody else have a comment on that? Yes, Elizabeth.
Hi, Elizabeth Harder. The Housing Committee is in the process on working with the, I don't know Brianna's official title, Housing
Advocate.
Coordinator,
Advocate.
Housing Advocate, in rewriting the charge, which was originally, this new change was originally suggested by the housing consultant that the town is paying for. So she suggested a new version of what the housing authority, what the housing committee should be doing. We had a meeting on it. We also met with people from the Affordable Housing Trust to discuss it. The committee made one change to it, but that was all done while Brianna was out. So currently, we are waiting for Brianna's opinion on it and her recommendations
Great.
for the charge. I think that whatever our charge is going to be, it would be really helpful if we could have more members on the committee, because I feel like the more input we can get, the better. The housing committee charge has definitely changed since or needs to be changed, I should say, since the creation of the Affordable Housing Trust, because that is now the place to go for affordable 80% and below AMI housing. So the housing committee doesn't need to do that, and except when asked by the trust for help with anything they want.
That's great, because you're ahead of the 8 ball. I don't remember who the liaison is to housing, but same, it's Julie.
Me.
Same as all of them. We're gonna talk to the employee first, so that's gonna be Brianna.
Right.
And then you'll already have your charge. That's just gonna expedite the conversation for housing, so thank you.
Okay, I'd just rather have
Michael?
people than not.
Mary, I would completely disagree with the way this process has started, because the way we've discussed it and the way outlined is it will start with the Board of Selectmen liaison working with the department head and then working with the committee. Elizabeth was right. The housing committee has changed and their charge has changed. We just didn't change it. So in order for this process, and this is great that this document is in here tonight to work, it shouldn't start with the committee meeting with a department head and figuring out what their charge is. This is the Board of Selectmen's charge, not the committee's charge, and this is the same thing we just went through with golf, and I'd love to avoid that. And as far as more people go, that's a great statement, with the exception of, look at the housing committee for the last 15 years and tell me how many times it was actually full. Those are the conversations on a high level that the board needs to have, but the committees should not be driving what their charge is without the board meeting with the department head through the town administrator first and presenting the charge.
I don't think it creates harm, and I really don't want to have a debate between the two of you. I'm going to end this conversation.
One quick thing, because I noticed this with the golf committee too. All
Elizabeth,
committees want to do work for you.
Elizabeth, I'm
We
going
wanna
to ask you
work.
once more, and I'm going to hit the gavel. We're done. We're done talking about housing. This was supposed to be about general committee work, and Michael is right. The liaison is supposed to talk to the employee, if there is one, and then talk to the committee. On the other hand, I don't see any harm in what Elizabeth has done in talking to Brianna. More communication never hurts. It doesn't supplant what Julie's gonna do. So I don't see any harm there. We've agreed that the interview committee's gonna pause. They're gonna keep moving but not make all the appointments necessarily. The next one was to get a process for handling current committee members if the board ultimately decides we want to reduce seat numbers or combine committees. It's 9 o'clock tonight. I suggest that we take that up at another meeting, unless somebody has some grand scheme. And then the last one can go with that, a board discussion on the role need for alternate members on non-regulatory. I know I've talked to Ellen about that, and I've never understood that, what all these alternates are. And I think each liaison can work that with their committees. Then the next part was our team, Emily, Jen, and Ellen, came up with committees that they thought would be good to look at first, based on they're not regulatory, and they made sure to have 1 or 2 for each of us. So unless anyone has an objection, that's what we'll start with. If anyone wants to throw something else in there, that's okay too. All right, and then the next section is just the documents that, oh, Michael, didn't see you.
Mary, I think the suggested list from the team is a great list to start. How do you want to get these back?
I figure whenever you're ready. I've asked Danielle to keep committee update as an old business item, and if somebody's ready to report out on the committee, we'll just plug it in. So we'll just, even if it's just one, there's no harm doing them one at a time.
Okay, and then I don't know if we're reading off the same email, but number 3, factors to help standardize the
Yep.
review of individual committees?
Yep.
That's the same document
That's the
we're on?
same document. And that's the information that Emily and her committee are providing to us.
Okay.
And they've started with those committees, since those are the ones we assumed we'd do first.
Okay, and some of the feedback from the public has been that we would pick committees that we don't necessarily like the people on and review the committees, which all of us know clearly that's not true. But to standardize that and to make it so that we're all reviewing the same way.
Right.
This is the criteria we're gonna follow?
Correct. Anyone have any additions, subtractions?
For the record, I'm the liaison to the Monomoy School District, and I'm not recommending that we disband it.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's comforting.
That clears that one up.
Madam Chair?
Yes. Emily?
I'll be
You've waited
brief.
a long time.
I promise. Emily Mitchell, Town Clerk. While you're talking about process and elements of the review process, I just wanted to mention, as you decide what order of the committees you would liaise to that you want to review next after these 6, our team can provide a lot of the information. So we can provide composition, compliance with open meeting law, swearing in, conflict of interest training, when the last agendas and minutes were posted and things, charges and all the other governing documents. But then the bigger picture questions are obviously yours to make. So what is the scope? What is the role? Do you need their advice? And how do you want it? That type of thing. So of those, we can provide many, but not all of the governing documents.
Great. Really appreciate that. Michael?
So how do you see that? How do you want that from us as we pick committees that we are the liaison to? How do you want us to inquire? Just to you?
I'm happy to be the conduit for that, absolutely. Yes.
So we just email you, I've finished those 2, I'd like to do these 2, that type of thing.
That would work great.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions
Thank
for Emily while we've got her? Thank you.
Thank you.
I can't tell you how great this was. We knew we needed work, but you guys helped define it for us. Anybody have anything else on general committee? Move on to procurement, Joe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excuse me. You will see in the packet, there's a memorandum from the Assistant Town Administrator to me updating the big spreadsheet. The first thing I want to identify, I think based on commentary from the board at the last review, last month, that you can see a new column between description and amount remaining, and that is the initial appropriation, so we can have some frame of reference to that and where it started from. Then you can see that she has updated the breakdown on the various options. And I think last but most importantly, from my perspective, to show you the 9 bid openings that are scheduled to take place within the next month. In fact, the first one, the vote tabulating equipment, that has already happened and recommendations are working through the system. And then if you look at the bottom of that list, the disposition of 276 Queen Anne Road, disposition of 62 Route 28, those are coming due next week. So you can see that the progress continues. We continue to take projects off from month to month and are still actively engaged in the process.
Great. Any questions? And yeah, Michael?
At one point, we discussed priorities of the board and moving things up on the list. And I believe we asked board members to send in their priorities. I know I sent in one related to related to owners unknown. Could the town administrator answer when he thinks he's gonna start working on that one?
So if I remember correctly, the bid notification on that document went out today.
Okay.
But I can send more information by email.
Thank you.
Great. Anything else? Contracts. Joe, I think that's you.
It is. This is related to both CPC article from years past, but long story short, the town is looking to contract with Ty and Bond Engineering Services, and it relates to the Route 124 culvert assessment. And so as you can see in the packet, there is an opportunity for the town to receive reimbursement of a significant level, about just under 90,000 of the just under 120,000 that relates to this project. I can answer any questions that are in the packet, but certainly recommend that the board vote to execute the contract with Ty and Bond as recommended by staff.
Can I have a motion on that? Don? Oh,
Sure. I'm pointing to
Yep.
Jeff.
I move to approve the contract with Teagan Bond for the engineering services for Route 124 culvert assessment in the amount of $119,884 and no cents.
Second.
any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
5-0, Joe?
Thank you.
Is town administrators report?
So I do have some updates of a personnel variety in a good way. I want to announce several appointments. First, that Meredith Ballinger has been offered and accepted and has been appointed as senior health agent for the health department for the town. You may recall, as I presented earlier, Carrie Schoner has been promoted from senior health agent to the position of health director, and Meredith comes highly regarded and recommended, and it's great to have her on the team. Her official start date is scheduled for Monday, September 11th. Secondly, the appointment of Melissa Cameron to be executive assistant in the treasurer collectors department, again with the promotion of Crystal Legendry to assistant treasurer collector. We had the vacancy. Ms. Cameron has been offered and accepted the position. She'll be joining us in her new role on September 5th. And last but by no means least is Mr. Jeremy Dutcher, who joins us as a laborer in the Harwich Water and Wastewater Department. And this fills a vacancy caused by departure of Val Peters. So great to have these three folks on board and starting in the coming weeks. Additionally, if I could, there was a few contract updates. The first is related to the town's contract with the firm known as CAI. They are helping us convert and reconfigure assessing department tax map data to industry standards, and so they're working on GIS data maintenance services. The amount for this contract is $24,900, and it comes out of The annual town meeting of 2023, Article 16, Project Number 5, which would have been the capital items. Additionally, signed a contract with, through, I should say, Carasoft DocuSign, and it's really that Carasoft is the provider, DocuSign is the software application we use. We've renewed that. The great legacy of Carol Capola lives on. We have renewed the master contract with them for an additional year at $10,044. And I believe that concludes my report for this evening.
Okay, Selectman report, Don?
I'll defer to Jeff for about Saturday. I have nothing to say.
I don't have anything to report on Saturday because I had to leave, so I'll defer to Jeff as well.
Jeff?
I'm going to defer to Michael on Saturday. No, I will say that both Don and I attended Ray Gottwald's citizen meeting at the community center regarding housing, which kind of morphed into a lot of different things. But as I said there, and I'll say it here, anything that gets our residents to mobilize and speak and be heard and share their views, opinions of Harwich, I'm all for it. So I'm looking forward to the next step by Ray's group. And that's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Michael?
I'm going to defer to Don.
You threw me under the
Again.
bus at the meeting, so.
I
it was-
did?
Yeah, yeah.
I was
Don
asked
can
to...
speak to that.
Motion to adjourn?
No,
Oh, you got
no,
one.
you asked me to do something. I was asked to do an update on the trust, and it occurred to me I should probably put that on once a month after the trust meets. So, Larry has been very inclusive, and we've had 3 different groups come in to talk to us. Michael Locke from Conservation, Harwich Conservation, and he was in for just a working together type conversation. And out of that came that event that you've all been invited to, 9/27, talking about how conservation and housing don't have to be at odds and can work together. The other people he had in is Jay Coburn and Amanda from CDP. She's the new housing person on his staff, and they were very helpful. So nothing definitive, it was just a conversation of how we can work together. And the third was Elizabeth Harder came in from the Housing Committee, and again, a good conversation. Jen Goldston is close to finishing on the Trust Action Plan, and we also expanded her contract to help, excuse me, to help create a form and a process for the trust to review developers who are requesting money. The trust has the ability to give money, but it occurred to us we had neither a process nor a form, and she has some experience with that. And then last, the beloved RFP for Marceline. We're going to use Laura
Schufelt.
to get that going. She said it'll take about 3 weeks to write it, and you need 9 weeks to allow people to bid.
She's with MHP. Great.
That's it.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone else can sleep over.